Good evening, everybody. It's December the 26th, 2020, soon to be 2021. Hope everybody's had a great holiday. And of course, as usual, we are broadcasting to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, VK, and Periscope. And we, of course, will be losing Periscope, I believe, on the 31st of March. So we sing goodbye to our Periscope viewers. But please, those of you on Periscope, please watch us. I know Mike Valella, you're out there. You watch our Periscope broadcast. Thank you very, very much. And please move over to YouTube. And we suggest YouTube only because the resolution is a lot better on YouTube than it is on Facebook. That's out of the way. So hope everybody had a great holiday. I'm joined with my co-host David Price from Arlington, Virginia. I'm located in Bridgeton, New Jersey, as you can see up top there. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm just making sure you are in Bridgeton. Okay, yeah, you're
I'm
in Bridgeton,
definitely
right?
in Bridgeton.
Well, how is anyone doing these days, Brian? Um, it's look, 2020. Not going to talk a lot about it. It's been bizarre. It's ending. Its ending is going to be perhaps one of the most bizarre endings in American history, and we're going to be here, and we're going to be watching it, and we're going to see how it plays out, and it will end. We're not in Groundhog's Day like the movie. It's not going to continue. But how it's going to end, and of course, really for us Americans, we really get two New Years this year. We get the end at when the clock chimes midnight on December 31st, and then we get a New Year when the clock chimes noon on January 21st. So we'll see, and we will see.
We certainly will, Dave. And since last time we spoke, there has been quite a bit of news, as you know, Dave.
Wow, yes.
Right.
It's funny, just along those lines, just real quickly before you start. Um, in the few weeks we have left, I mean, hopefully we'll be mentioning Trump. If we do this show for a decade, I think Trump will still be involved in some way or another. But it's just interesting how much it is different. Traditionally, Christmas time in the news industry is a very slow time. With Trump, there is no slow time, right? There's just no slow time, and there hasn't been, and there won't be, at least till January the 20th, and depending on how the news media treat him, beyond. So go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry, but I
Right.
just want to make
I'm
that
glad
point.
you mentioned that because it's kind of interesting. I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a little bit here. And that is that, I was talking to my wife, Ronnie, yesterday during Christmas. I said, at least one day he would have the decency to shut the hell up during Christmas. And he, it just shows you he doesn't really think the way we think, which will relate
You
to
know,
the topics we'll be talking about, Dave. But he certainly, it just doesn't, what matters to him is himself. And it doesn't matter that it's Christmas. It's nothing sacred to him. And
you know, you raise an interesting point. I just thought of before he ran for president. Uh, I wonder what Christmas Eve and Christmas morning was like in the Trump household. And I'm talking about little Trump all the way to when he ran. Now, of course, as president, obviously it's a little different, but that would be interesting. Listen, if anybody out there wants to, write a TV show, maybe there's a TV show for you or a movie, if not a TV show. The Trump Christmas. I don't. Can you? I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be like.
I mean, you know what? And I always found it very distasteful in some places to have a comedy about something that's serious. So I think it took a certain number of years and it took the right person like Mel Brooks to do something like, with,
Right.
with Nazi Germany, Hogan's Heroes, those kind of things. Um, I don't know that I could have a laughing. Maybe perhaps we need it at some point in our lives. Maybe there will be a time. But right now, I'm so angry with the guy that I don't know that I could withstand a
And
humorous
and
show
and
with
I,
Trump.
and I think one of the things that I will always hold him accountable for is doing just what you said. He's hurt so many people in so many ways. Um, and sometimes we all lose sight of that. I mean, we know that he hurt people, I mean, directly. And one of the things he's done to many, many, many Americans is they've lost their sense of humor about that. And once you do that, that's kind of sad because actually kind of sound psychological principle is if you can make fun. Now we're talking satire, mockery, other ways of doing someone like Trump. That's good, but I've seen that a lot. I mean, with the museum when I was working there for 3 years that Trump was in, and that's the last time I've worked. Right? Well, last time a lot of people have worked around people, but we all have different. And I'm like kind of humorous. That's kind of my thing. And I could tell sometimes that people just, I don't know, is that really something you should be making fun of? So whether you were humorous or not, it's just changed so much. So there's, yeah.
Kim says
Kim,
hello.
hey, Kim. Hello, Kim.
Yeah.
And just saw one of the regulars said hello.
Good to see you, Anthony.
Yeah,
And
good
of
to
course,
see you.
we may also have another guest, Kim. If we're supposed to have Sandy Shellis tonight, I don't know if she's going to make it or not, but she said cool, so we'll wait and see if she shows up. But maybe Sandy will show up. You know her well, Kim. I know that. So anyway, Dave, I wanted to hello, CB. CB just said hello. I believe from Canada. So CB, are you from Canada? I think you're from Canada. We have a lot of Canadians who watch this show for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a snow season up there. Maybe they're snowed in. I don't know.
And we have a hey there, and I don't know who the hey there is. So again, with Facebook, I'm just not able to bring up the name. So please put your names in, folks, whoever you are. And I guess I sent a couple messages. I sent her a link, Kim. If you do want to call her,
it wouldn't hurt, Kim. Sure. I mean, because we love to have. I mean, we love to have Sandy on the show.
Right. Yeah.
She's very much an asset.
Right, and we'll have a good time talking. It'd be great. So yeah, Kim, sure, if you can get a hold of her. I can't call now because number one, I don't know her number, but there was Joey. Joey said hello. Okay, Joey, good to see you.
Hey, Joey.
All right. So Dave, I want to talk about ghosts on this Christmas season.
Well, that would
Ghost of
be
Christmas
good.
Past, and this ghost's name is Ken Starr, and like a bad dream or something that you've done in your life that kind of stays with you don't like. Here is this Ken Starr. He's on Fox. I'm watching Fox News, and then I hear him with his horseshit because they're asking him about the pardons, and that's going to be our first topic tonight, Dave. I think I want to get through this because this was kind of earlier in the week,
Right.
the pardons. So someone asked him from Fox, and I forget who it was. It doesn't really matter, but he asked about the pardons to Ken Starr and saying, you look at the number of pardons that he's had and the types of people that he's pardoned. Would you like to make a comment about it? And Ken Starr basically says, well, Obama made well over 1,000 pardons, and there were some individuals there, blah, blah, Yeah, well, we knew that, Ken, But, he automatically, his response to the question is a what about. See, I hate the what about answer. Well, what about this? So already that's his defense. He's going to defend it by saying, and we know damn well there's a big difference between the two, and I'm going to have you comment on that. But isn't it ironic that the ghost of the past came up? And, I know you don't like Ken Starr, but maybe you'd like to say a few words about that.
Well, let me think. Okay, so not only have we lost our sense of humor, but many Americans have lost their sense of what word am I looking for here? It's that new word. I don't like it, but we use it called scope, the scope of things, right? The scope. Well, I don't care if you pardon 100,000 people who deserved it, right? It's not the number. It's who you pardon and why you pardoned them. And that is something all along that I think definitely, and sometimes I really do, again, I always qualify this. I would not be ashamed to be a Democrat. I would be very proud to be a Democrat. The reason that I'm not a Democrat is I just don't join things. I just don't join. And, maybe at some point tonight it'll be appropriate, not for me to say why, but it'll come up why, but I don't. So I identify myself as a liberal, and I'm a liberal in politics, and I'm a liberal in elections. And what that means is every election, whether it's a local, local election, state election, county election, national election, I look for those who are running, who, again, have a chance to win. I think that's important for me. For others, they vote their conscience. That's fine. And so by doing that, it's clear that we were divided before all this. But whether it's going back to Ken Starr, I
Because
mean, all the
he's
way.
made a habit of helping out the Republican Party.
Well, but Ken, I don't look. Uh, I don't want to. I don't want to denigrate lawyers like a lot of people do. But people forget that the law is not really about justice, right? It's about the law. And for so many jobs, take this. I mean, there are people who do this for a living. Some people go for the money. Some people go for the truth. I think Ken Starr really isn't that interested in the truth. I think he's interested in the conservative ideas. But if I were interested, this is the other point I would make and continue to make. If I were a conservative, it's hard to meet for me, excuse me, to even consider that. But I would not consider Trump a conservative. And it's not surprising, but
Right, but
that's
does that really matter anymore at this point with the Republican Party?
Well, no, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Does it? Did it ever? I don't know. Or is it just about winning?
I mean, the
And
time
I've
has
always
changed, Dave, so much now that
oh,
you've
well,
said yourself, he's co-opted the party.
there's no question. It is, I separate the two for a reason. Just like I separate myself, I'm not a Democrat, although 99.99 times out of elections I vote for a Democratic candidate. I also think in all fairness, we should represent, and you could say former Republicans for the most part, and that number grows. It's not, it's certainly not 74 million people who voted for Trump, but you're going to continue to see it. What you see happening is simply this. Whatever standards the Republican Party had with Trump taking over, they can't hold them now. Trump has no standards. So you can't support Donald Trump and have standards. It doesn't work that way. That'll lead us into the pardons later. But yeah, Ken Starr, echoing, could you switch?
Sorry, it's good.
I know. I'll let you know. I understand
okay.
that. Ken Starr, to me, had his 15 minutes of fame. And I really don't care what he says right now. And again, the irony, I suppose, if that's the proper word, I'm not even sure it is this idea that the real power players, and we'll get to that in a moment, are no one who was a power player in 2016 is a power player today.
Let's take a quick look, Dave.
Sure.
And what these people have been in violation of. Again, and I'll go through the list briefly because there's, I think, 65 pardons so far. We could get up to 2,000 pardons by the time this is done. But, just look, willful failure to pay over taxes, conflict of interest, obstruction of justice, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit tax evasion, conspiracy to unlawfully import cocaine into the U.S., okay? I mean, it goes on and on and on, and then a lot of these are obviously related to him. I mean, they're all related to his family. So people have been calling this basically a crime family, and it's to me it's disgusting because it is different than what happened before with the pardons. I know that Rich was pardoned by Obama, and there's always a few that you say, what the hell is this? But there was always some reason to do it, and I don't know that you could always irrationally, rationalize it, but there was always some type of reason. But here, it just seems that this is anybody who was close to him and helped him basically got a free pass, get out of jail free card. And I mean, I could go through the entire list, David. I don't want to make the show about that. I think you get the point.
Right.
These pardons there's just something about them that's different than anything I've ever seen.
Well, didn't you just sum up Trump's 4 years? There's just something different about this than we've ever seen. And I think, I don't even use the comparison anymore to 1968. There's no comparison, Trump. This is something that's never happened in American history, ever, 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 ever. And each and every day, for the rest of my life, what little bit I can do, I'm just one person. I would like to work to make sure that it can't happen again. Because when this is done on January 20th, and phase, we
and
talked about
the 20th, okay? I mean, I don't mean to be smart, Alec. There, just that you say the 20th, you think this is? Yeah, I know it's not going to end, but you
No,
start
no.
the
What I'm
Trump
saying,
thing, it's over.
but if you remember, Brian, I mean, I'm stick. Trump makes you revise daily, sometimes
Right.
hourly, sometimes minute by minute. But I still think, not because I said it, because very little
I
did I
understand that.
say that
And you would
this
change
original.
your. You've told me yourself that
Yeah,
at times you get
that's
nervous.
original. But I'm still viewing this 2020 as three crises, if you will. The first crisis was the election.
Hmm.
And we not only we survived that, we won. I mean, there was it was a win loss. There was no close. It was either get rid of Trump or wow, and we did that. And that is the official word. We'll talk later in the show about possible ways that Trump or Trump supporters think it's not, but that's a done deal. Now, the waning days, we're seeing what could happen, and the pardons, though, the only thing I would comment on the pardons is this.
And by the way, we're not, again, you agree, we're not done with the pardons here.
Oh no, no,
That
no,
we,
no, no, no,
it might, you
no.
might
I
see,
just,
even though Kyle Rittenhouse, it's a
oh no,
state
no,
thing.
no,
They
no,
may see
no,
something
no,
come
no.
up.
When I said that, I said, but we're done with the election.
Giuliani
Okay?
is going to get a pardon for
I mean,
whatever.
done. We know they're not done with it. We're done with it. Okay.
Right.
Now we're in this crucial, period of time when Trump still has power. You described him as a wounded animal. I would disagree with that to this extent. That denigrates every animal who's ever lived. He's less than that, but he is wounded.
Oh,
The
he's
idea,
wounded, all right. Yeah, there's no doubt
yeah,
about that.
and we know, and then no, there's no rest. It's just a different phase, and then we go into, which we'll talk a little bit tonight about, I think, or probably I'm sure we will. Trump after he's not president. Right now, we're dealing with Trump. Well, Trump either believing or not believing he's not going to be president on January 20th. So no, Brian, to anybody who thinks that, and it's kind of similar to what I'm going to say about the pardons. One is there's no question there were deals made. It'll be interesting to see if the new Justice Department can make a case. You talked about crime family. That's exactly what they do. I was thinking about Paul Manafort. If you said you never seen the movie, but for those who have, The Godfather, they send a message to what had been one of the main guys, Frankie Five Fingers Pantangelo, and they say, Frankie, remember what the Romans, centurions did when they were caught up. And they kill themselves. And of course, he does do that. But they sent the message that way. It was clear Trump sent a message to him that, stick by me, stay with me, and I'll make sure that I pardon you. And he did. Indeed, he did. Which leads me to my last comment on the pardons.
And by the way, they knew all the time. I mean, it was obvious now that Roger Stone, Manafort, didn't matter. They could lie all they wanted because they were going to get pardoned.
But it's the thing is,
except for Michael Cohen, he's not
whether
going to get pardoned.
and I don't even know if it matters whether Trump is. Some days I think he's more stupid. Some days I think he's more smart. Some days I think he might have a plan. Sometimes I think he's not. But the one thing that is essential to his character is, as everyone knows, it's all about him, and the rules really do not apply to him. So he doesn't. They haven't had to his whole life. He has gotten away with things that nobody else, other than someone in Donald Trump's position, could get away with. You couldn't. I couldn't. Anybody listen to our show couldn't. Not even senators.
Right.
It's
Dave,
powerful.
just a real quick point I wanted to
sure
to mention to Keith, Dave, and I.
Yes, do that.
We really know the tough times you're going through, and I don't know what else to say, but
there really isn't.
We're thinking,
and we messaged each other. Because Keith is kind of one of the unofficial people. Not that he doesn't have a lot on his plate. He was keeping an eye on my grandchildren just by being in the same country with them. Keith, if you ever just want to chat or something, get a hold of me. I mean, I can't say we've all been there. We throw that around a lot. Just like we do, we've all been in these situations. Well, we haven't been in like this in the country. And I've never been what Keith is going through. Yes, cancer. Yes, relatives, but not the person, that I was the closest to.
Right.
By the time my mother died of cancer, I was closer to my wife than I was my mom. I mean, so it just changes. So yeah. And Keith, you're one of the good ones. And you're proof that not always bad things can happen to good people. Yeah. And, that's it. Anti-Gaia, they're talking about this. And I think what's interesting to me, we made these, I did it, you did it, we all, it's like a crime family. It is, okay. I'm gonna deviate just for a moment to something I really want to make, because this was a great Anti-Gaia gave me a way to go into this. You know what I'm really tired of, and it's not going to end? I want to be able to watch a movie or a TV show and not have it me thinking about how it reflects Donald Trump. Just let me give you two examples. Just this. I If I were to pick my 10 favorite books of all time, The Stand would be there from Stephen King. Now, I'm not a huge Stephen King fan, which is interesting, but I love The Stand. It's basically two things that are fascinating to me to read about: dystopia, end of the world kinds of things, and then the eternal battle between good and evil. And there's a character in there who may or may not be the devil. And I'm sitting there and seeing how and what ways he compares to Donald Trump. I wouldn't have done that 4 years ago. When I read the book, I didn't do it, right? When I saw the original, it was a made-for-TV 4-night movie thing, I didn't do it. Now, suddenly I'm doing it. Last night, COVID Christmas in Washington, D.C., what do? Judy and I watched Wonder Woman. A little different than some people might watch it. When I was working at the museum, they filmed a scene right there. I was hoping I would get in it. I always get cut from the scene, so I can't prove that I was here. So we're looking at the DC things and how accurate it is. And there's the Watergate, And actually, I found I didn't know that the director has actually spent time here in Washington D.C. because I was amazed at some of the little names she got from the '80s, because it deals with the '80s. But there's a character in there, one of the two baddies, in fact, the main baddie, and very much like a Donald Trump type, right? Very much. And ends up, though, not being Donald Trump, because he actually finds feelings for someone. And Donald Trump that'll never happen to Donald. Never. So, yeah, Brian, the parts, I'm just surprised in a way that people are surprised. Now, if you want to rate them, I think to me, the worst, and to me, without studying each and every one, are the Blackwater killers. They're clearly murderers.
And Ken Starr, didn't mention that at all.
No, they never did. The idea of it is,
he was that like Dominion.
Even in presidents that I like, Obama, who I think is going to, like I said, I've said it all along, I'm not going to deviate from that. I think he will go down as one of the greatest presidents simply because of who preceded him and who came after. Not that he didn't do very well on his own. Yeah, flag, Kim Santero. Yes, it is. The idea is, though, with America has never been the moral giant that some people think we are. You can't be and be a country. We have killed children since the beginning of time. If you believe, there are people who do, and I don't believe in biblical retribution and that kind of thing, but I do think there's such a thing as original sin. And what I mean by that is not the concept that the Catholics believe. I think sometimes it's very hard to get out of it. And we were conceived literally in two. One was our treatment of indigenous people, American Indians, were what they were called when I was growing up, and slavery. And we're still paying prices for that. And we will pay prices for that perhaps forever, as long as there's a united. No, Keith, the answer is not. And Keith, that leads us, thank you for that. Don't forget, Brian, I want to talk a little bit about that, not the pardon thing, but what can be reversed.
Right.
What can be reversed? Because there's a lot of things I've been learning in the past week or two of things like, you could, no. Okay. So, yeah. So, we have that. And so back to these four killers. That's what they are. And then, of course,
they're mercenaries and they're killers.
And they killed a child.
Children,
Now, yeah, okay. What was that about? What was that about? And again, I suppose, in all fairness, before I would put them in front of a tribunal and have them shot, you have to look at it and see.
But they were still mercenaries. I don't care what was going on. Mercenaries are loose with their fingers,
And then the other thing is, in addition to, Iran is not our friend. The Middle East is a tenuous situation.
Correct.
And Trump now, and I've been reading just a little bit about that. I don't have time to do the whole world thing, but obviously Iran is up in arms about that. And and justifiably so. How can we take the high road? How can America take the moral high road with the world when it is clear to the world that these people killed these, people in a foreign land that weren't military? The people they killed weren't military. They weren't. They were acting as quasi-military.
Do you think that the Iranians, if they strike back, do you think they would go after like Republican congressmen or something like that? Is that any possibility or no?
The thing is, something else we're going to talk about tonight, but it's an interesting segue. It's really hard to say, Brian. And I mean, there's a good analysis for you. But I think, first of all, we're so preconditioned now to that kind of thing. I don't know how you reacted first to the Nashville news, and which you said you want to talk about a little bit later.
It's just the timing of it.
No, I agree.
No,
but what I'm saying
is the timing. You're automatically thinking like, hold it. I hope at least at the very least, I hope it's not a Democrat. You know what I mean? It's
what it was to me. I was, we were socially distancing, but we did have two people. We ate in our community room, and we had the 6 feet and all that. And the TV was on, and that was, I heard about it in the morning. I really didn't follow it. And I looked at it. And of course, the other two, big, regular American guys, a little bit younger. Oh man, that's going to be terrorism. I said, yeah, if it is, it's going to be domestic terrorism. So the point is, it's not easy, Brian, for foreign governments to do a lot in another country in terms of, Iran hurting us here. But would they want to do that? I'm sure. And again, remember, on their side, it's also a holy war. So that brings other things into play. You know what I mean? It's not just like, I want revenge on Donald Trump, or I want this. So, I mean, I think it's a great question. What will they do? I think, it's certainly, and I guess the other thing is, and
I'm sure that there are Republicans thinking about it, because if anybody would be targeted, it would be them.
Keith, I agree. We can't, because it all comes back to money. Look, it's not, and there are some places where democracy,
and it's a destabilized area too. I mean,
and there's some things, and your friend. And look, I mean, I grew up, in the Red Scare of the 50s and the early 60s, all the way through to the revised Red Scare. When and we really, that's something that if people aren't familiar with, you need to read about when Reagan was in, how close we came really to nuclear war. It's only been 2 times we've really been close. And of course, the one we know about, those who lived through it, the Cuban Missile Crisis. But it really comes down, it still comes down to money a lot of times. And quite honestly, and Brian, you and I've talked about this a lot, there's also this problem that we kind of inherited at the end of World War II. We were the last person standing. If a country can be a person, and we were more powerful than just, simply we were unscarred except for, Pearl Harbor. We were the only country that had that. Most of Europe was devastated, had to rebuild.
And
Japan,
we were the only country which could. And this goes back, if I may go on a slight tangent again, Dave. I remember a guy named Professor Olson, a guy that was in my Japanese class. He was a history professor with World War II, and he was having a discussion with me about World War II, and he mentioned that there were scholars, historians who had done some studies on what would have happened just theoretically, almost like a thought experiment, if Germany and the United States during World War II had gone tete-a-tete, who would have won. And most people agreed that despite the Germans had a slight tactical advantage in their tanks or this or that, that the United States in the long run still would have beaten Germany, because we had the ability to outproduce them, much more so. And that has something to do with, again, is after the war, what you're talking about. And I imagine you would agree with me on that. I think that's pretty sensible. We probably would have beaten, because don't forget, we had two wars going and they had one. You know what I mean? No matter what we say, we had 2 wars at once.
Back in those days, right, before cyber, it was about 2 things: the resources you had in terms of natural resources to make things, and the people you had to make them, and then the facilities you had. Yeah, I think that's another interesting thing. I've talked to people. Oh, that was God decided that war. No, Military strength decided that war.
Absolutely.
Same thing with the North and the South.
And it
Same thing with the North.
relates
I
to the
mean, the
pandemic
North
too,
and the
Dave.
South, it relates to everything. But
It was
again,
the ability to I mean, it's supply chains, like supply chain management. I mean, it wasn't just the fact that we had decent enough tanks or aircraft or whatever. We had a supply chain bar none. There was nothing compared to the
no,
supply chain we had.
no, and that's often. I mean, if you go back, and this is really, I don't think it's scraping so much. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my favorite countries, Peru. And it's fortunate, Judy and I got to spend some time there and travel through. And of course, they fell victim to the Spanish conquistadors. And it's it does relate in a way to this question. So, the Spanish conquistadors hid, or the monks hid behind the idea of these are pagan people and we're bringing them to God. And if they don't come to God, we'll kill them. That's a little scary. But on the other side, it was for treasure, right? It was for treasure. And, but the people, as far as numbers, should have maybe won against the Spanish. There were very few. I mean, there weren't many. There weren't many Spanish warriors there, but superior weapons. And that's why I've always said, I love America. I'm very grateful that I was born into this country. However, that having been said, I've never seen America live up to the ideals as established in our founding documents. And so there's always room to grow. American exceptionalism to me is a joke. And I've said it before, I will say it again. The only thing Donald Trump has done with American exceptionalism is to make us exceptionally bad. And that is across the world. And Keith, I understand what you're saying, and I would agree with that. But I think economics, it is economics, okay, that drives it and money behind it. But the economics allow you to have the strength, okay? I think that's part of it. I think modern weaponry, if you begin, you can study it anywhere you want. But the Normans, in their conquest, the Hastings, 1066 and all that, it was the longbow that won it there. It was the development of a weapon that can't be countered. So where do I live, Dave? Kim, I live, if I saw you in an airport or somewhere, I would say Washington, D.C., because it's easier to say that. I don't. I live in a place called Crystal City, which is in Arlington, Virginia, which is 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C. And I'm amazed. You might even have visited here. I'm always amazed when I go through this. And then people say, oh, I'm familiar with Crystal City because if you're not from here, and this will be interesting, something you want to bring up later, Brian. So if you're not from here, you call it Reagan National Airport. If you're from here, no one calls it Reagan National Airport. You call it National Airport. So that kind of, a number of people have done there. So to put it in perspective, 3 metro stops from DC, exactly 1.9 miles from the Pentagon and 4.6 miles from the White House. And so in the event, I don't worry about it, but let's put it like this, close enough that in the event of a nuclear war, the targets, I won't even see the flash. Well, I don't have to worry about surviving.
Well, Kim, you certainly have a great governor out there.
Yeah.
I would have voted for Inslee, if I
well,
felt
Kim,
he had
I'm going to make,
when this,
I'm going to assume I'm only a psycho killer.
And by the way, he had the balls to go up against Trump as governor too.
There was no question about it. He was a great governor. Kim, one of the nice things about this show is it's very informal. We are friendly. Please, if you do get a chance, when we can travel again, and want to surprise Brian for me, I don't know if it surprised you or anyone out there. I really am surprised how quickly we were able to get a possible, and it looks like actually a usable vaccine up and running. That amazes me. It amazes me. So Kim, when you can travel again, let me know, and I will show you our Washington, D.C., which is very different. Okay. But the pardons, we started there. Like I said, the pardons. Last thing I will say about pardons, they should not surprise anyone. This was prime Donald Trump. You do for me, I will do for you. It doesn't matter what the law is. It doesn't matter now. I don't know if you saw, Brett. I saw something very interesting. Colin Powell suggested that the Army could recall General Flynn and charge him through military tribunal.
Right.
That would be very interesting because you do have. I mean, you and I have talked about it, and I'm in the camp. We'll see if I'm right. I hope I am. That the military will not act.
He's just that bad. I think the military has a real
normally you say it to commander in chief,
just like Oliver North. There's a certain
they don't recognize
line.
And they don't recognize General Flynn anymore.
Right.
In fact, they're scratching their head and say, "What the hell happened?" I don't know if they call him
somebody's
Flinny.
got to be investigated.
What the hell happened? What the hell happened to Flinny? Right?
He could have ruined the whole thing. So I do want to go on, but we both agree that Ken Starr is a real asshole and always causing trouble. Always.
He's part of that. He's just part of that.
It's just when the shoes on the other. I remember when, and I'm just going to make this short because I know we want to get up to the next topic.
Right.
But when he was going after Clinton day in and day out, and then Bob Livingston was with the hookers, and then then he's crying spilled milk. Livingston's always pointing his finger at Clinton. He's the Speaker of the House or whatever, and and Starr says nothing about that, and then things kind of calm down. It was kind of like when Stuttering John from the Howard Stern show interviewed Jennifer Flowers and asked, Jennifer was in this quote unquote serious press conference with her attorney, and then he asked her a question like, "Do you intend on having any other affairs with politicians?" And everybody started laughing. Asked if she used a condom, that kind of thing, and it destroyed her. Just everything she had behind that case, it destroyed her because he put it out there as a farce. And it's funny. And Dave, this it could be on any topic we talk about, and I hope you folks will join in. You think about it. All these reporters who went after Jennifer Flowers and the attorney couldn't get anything out of them. But you get a guy like Stuttering John, just a guy, a rock musician who has who stammers, and he's from the Howard Stern show. They don't get along anymore. But the point is, he, through that type of questioning, was able to put an end to her crap. All the things that CBS News and ABC and CBS would do, he did. And you're in that field, Dave. But isn't it interesting that somebody just had the right thing to say at the right time to put those people in their places?
What happens, Brian, and I love journalism. I think journalists serve an important purpose. But I'm as guilty as this as anybody else when I was a working journalist. There's also how do I explain this? All right. There's rules, unstated rules of behavior, codes of conduct that you kind of don't deviate from. And that sometimes keeps you from getting news. Let me give you one example for everybody out there. If you've never been, it would happen to every reporter who's ever lived, who's been any good. In order to get stories, you have to have sources, right? Most politicians do not. The big stories are never, even if it's a vote, it's a story behind a vote. I don't make any secret of it. When I was an active reporter, I was also an active alcoholic and active drug addict. So it was great. I could live in bars, and I got some great stories, that way from politicians, because after hours and, setting them up, and, I'd buy drinks for them, and, it'd be kind of a cool thing to do to get stories. But the problem becomes you make friends, right? And, it's human. And so suddenly now it's then you look at your job. Well, if I cut them, right, then I won't get this source. And I know it still goes on because I've talked to some people that are still in the business down here, argued with them. And it's like anything else, Brian. I think you're right on the money, but it's often easier. I mean, think about the job we share. We're both educators. Do you know who would be the best observer to come in? Somebody who's not in education, right?
Right.
I mean, but that knew.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree
because,
with you.
Because, again, it's the same thing. We say, well, some people, it's always been this way, or I don't like the superintendent, so I don't give him credit for anything.
Right.
So, we should never make journalism is important. And again, not because, she did tape at the museum, and I think the world of her. I think she really is. Anybody's interested, two people you want to follow. The first is the one that I just think is just a really nice person, Soledad O'Brien. She's broken from the business and is kind of looking at it. So she's like that outsider now looking at it. If you're on Twitter, follow her on there. It's great. And Margaret Sullivan, who's the Post ethics journalistic columnist. They're very good at pointing out journalism has been a huge part of the problem. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It bears repeating. The chairman of CBS News said it best when Trump first emerged, he said, Donald Trump may not be good for the country, but he's really good for CBS News. And that is true no matter where you are on the Trump reporting spectrum.
Right. But in terms of, like, I've just noticed, like, certain things that have happened when you have the regular people in the town hall and they ruin everything. Just the simplest of questions. Joni Ernst was destroyed just by a common citizen, from Iowa who, had a slight argument, and she demanded an answer, and Joni Ernst wouldn't give the answer, and she kept coming back at her. And I guess, as you say, like, a reporter has to, abide by certain rules.
There's also something that we argued a lot at the museum. And once we get back and we can actually start socializing again with the people I work there with, I want to continue that discussion. How much did Donald Trump, being unlike any other politician, how much did he change the news business? And I think he changed it a lot. It was changing anyway. This is not a show for that. Someday we'll do a show on, the changes, but it does affect. And people today, there were two groups, I guess, in the museum, the easiest way to put it. Some said we can't take a side against Donald Trump, right? Because journalists are supposed to be objective. I wasn't in that group. I was on the other side of the group. We were all former working journalists who said, no, Donald Trump is an enemy to the First Amendment. We are the First Amendment fighters for. We have to come out against him. And it ended. The more powerful people won. I mean, when I say powerful, they were the ones up top because, again, and Kim, when you get here, one of the things you'll pick up very quickly when I give you my personal behind the scenes tour now. Washington doesn't work the way any other city in America works. It works similarly, but it doesn't. And there's so much ego here and so much powerful. Brian, I've told you two things that I've observed here that don't happen, I don't think, anywhere else in America. One is called the Washington, D.C. Read. And what that is, what happens is new books come out here, not weekly, but almost weekly on Washington prominent figures. And you rush to the bookstore. No, you send somebody to the bookstore. They go there, they pick up the book. They go to the index to see if you're mentioned or the person that, they're representing is mentioned. And if it is, they buy the book. If not, they put it back. Sometimes, and they don't really care sometimes how they're mentioned. They just want to be mentioned. Is that anything you say about me kind of thing? But even more obvious than that, if you're in a conversation here in DC, and Brian, you and I are holding a conversation, we're not doing it this way. Neither one of us are really looking at each other. We're looking over each other's shoulders to see if somebody more powerful is in the room. And I've seen that play out time and time and time again. So, this is a city, yes, money's very important. But if you had to say what it runs on, New York runs on money, Hollywood on, fame, Miami on glamour, Washington, D.C. runs on power. So it's really hard. I'm sure you've heard the term, the Washington bubble or the DC Beltway bubble or the Beltway bubble. And it really is. We all get trapped in if we live here. What's important here isn't necessarily what's important. So you were talking about Iowa Congressman Ernst. When they go home to their,
I think she's a senator, actually, isn't?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I was wrong.
You are. No. You're right. I said Congress. I don't know why. No, you're right. She's a senator from Iowa, and
which makes you just. It's mind-boggling. She's a senator. I mean,
mind-boggling to me. I mean, it doesn't take.
Doesn't it all link together with what I was just talking about, Dave? With how people can talk at a town hall and they're more effective. Stuttering John was able to do more than any reporter. Not saying that that's better, but if you look at what Fox does, and I don't want to get too deeply into this, but we've discussed this where have guys like Hannity, O'Reilly. Well, he's not there anymore. Ingram. Most of them are not that educated, but they're more effective in comparison with the Stephanie Rules of the world because their language, the way they communicate what they're trying to say, the propaganda works perfectly with the audience.
But Brian, one of the things about propaganda, and first of all, propaganda is one of those words, the connotation of propaganda is it can't be good. Yeah, propaganda can be good. I mean, it depends on who's using it and how that's being used. But the key element of propaganda is to keep it simple, so that the simplest, the least amount of time has to be spent on deciphering the message. it's the economy, stupid, right?
Right,
That kind of
right.
thing.
Keep it simple. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
Democrats want to kill babies.
yeah, and of course, that's a big thing. And just if you're an effective communicator, it doesn't mean you're on the side of right. Donald Trump, look, there's certain things you have to say about the man. Uh, he commands his audience as well as any American president ever has. Okay. Now, would I want to be part of his audience? No. Would I want to be part
Essentially,
of
it's
the
a paid audience in a certain sense, in that
Well, I
it's
don't know. People
selective.
say, "No, you know what? It is," but it's also, they
I
aren't
mean,
true
Dave, he didn't
believers.
show up for the first pitch because he knew what was going to
Oh,
happen at the
no,
first
no,
pitch.
that's Trump. Well, no, of course that's smart. Why would he show
Right.
up?
He'd be embarrassed as soon as he walks out there on the field, especially if he throws a bad pitch, but he'll be booed
Well,
anyway.
although Dr. Fauci threw one of the worst opening day or one of
Yeah,
the first.
well, but
I mean,
Trump
he's
would have.
no, you're right. No, but what I'm saying, well, that's also part of being an effective communicator is know your audience and also know who isn't your audience. And he has been able to use that. He speaks in a language, in a way that nobody really has to struggle. You have to struggle to understand it because he garbles it, but you don't need to rush out to the dictionary to find out
Nothing,
what he's talking
never.
about. Yeah, you do the one word kofefi. That's my favorite T-shirt, my kofefi shirt. But I mean, that was a typo actually. But no, so yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things. Two things I think, if they would ask me, not what's good about Donald Trump, but how's he been so successful as president? Two. One is he has no human characteristics, no redeeming human characteristics. And I've challenged people and all over the political spectrum to show me one. And nobody's been able to. And I think because they don't exist. But that makes him the ideal con man. That makes him the perfect con. He has no conscience, no ethics, no morals, no standards. And the second thing is, and look, he got that. You're not on TV as long as he was, and not understand how to communicate. And he gets that. He does get that. Now, I don't watch reality TV because I think reality TV was a part of the dumbing down of America, not the soul thing, because it's not even reality TV; it's scripted. But that's part of it. So he speaks. And look, the third thing is, however, if I ran for president, I'm not going to get 74 million votes. Okay. I think I'm a hell of a lot better human being. I think I'm a hell of a lot smarter than Donald Trump. I don't know if I'm more articulate. I would certainly hope so. But all that, I'm not. So, those things you have to look at. And somebody said earlier, I forget whom, I need to pay more attention, I guess, to names. But one of our faithful followers here said something like, it's not Trump, it's the Senate. And I'm going to say that that's true. But even more so, it's not Trump and it's not the Senate. It's the people that elected Trump and the people that elected the people to the Senate. And that's what's, we're talking earlier, what doesn't go away. Trump as the person doesn't go away, but he's not going to be president. The senators and congressmen that are there are not going to go away. Some of them will be up for re-election in 2022, but they'll be there for at least 2 years. And definitely the people who are now Trump supporters, cult members, whatever they are, they're not going away.
All right, Dave. Thank you on that. I'm gonna end that conversation there because I do want to
Okay.
get to stimulus, Dave. We've all heard about the $2,000 Trump wants and the $600 that really the Republicans want. So, as you've said, they're really not the same thing. That you have basically the fascists, and then there's the Republicans, and then there's the Democrats. So, of course, the Democrats called his bluff, Dave, and they say, sure, if you want to give $2,000 to everybody, fine. But we all know that there's a price, or there's, what the big print giveth, the small print taketh away. And we know that there's something in it, and that's the leverage, the liability with tech firms. So essentially, I think what it means is he wants to have the ability to go after, the CNNs and the MSNBCs of the world who've gone after him, and a few other things too. But the main thing is the liability, and also meaning that some businesses won't have the liabilities. I'm not quite sure myself which is which as far as which ones he wants. Maybe there's these all get kind of confused because now you have like one bill, another bill, and another bill, and they're all kind of getting mixed in between. But the bottom line is that Trump only wants to give the $2,000 just to make it seem like he's there for the people. We know that there's something in there that he really, really wants, and he's trying to leverage it.
Certainly, that could be very accurate assessment. I've toyed with that. I'm not so sure at this point because I'm not sure about anything right now. Certainly, I'd be a hell of a person to say, well, what do you think? I'm not sure. What do you, I'm not sure. Well, you said, I know, but I'm not sure now. I think that's part of it, but I don't think that's a big part of it. I think he wanted to find a wedge between himself and those Republican legislators who didn't support him. And that's definitely a wedge, right? So I don't think he threw that $2,000 out, even as a sop to his people. I think, I said how this will play out. One of the things that's going to play out, quite honestly, in my way of thinking, is who does have the ultimate control over whatever the Republican Party is today. Is it Donald Trump? Is it Mitch McConnell? Because they're the two power players. And they are not working together right now. And I don't see any way that they can. And I think Trump set that up deliberately because he really does. You know, you and I were talking. We know.
I believe it's Section 230, Dave. I'm just looking here.
No, you're right. No,
it's Section 230. That part of it.
Well, I mean, that's part of it.
He really wants to go after these people.
Of course, that's his. Well, look. That's one of his, somebody said earlier, the prime directive. Well, Trump's prime directives don't line up with anybody else's humans' prime directives. One of his prime directives is if you don't, it's not even if you don't worship me. I mean, I think that's what's so interesting about it. It's not even if you do me wrong. If you don't worship me the way it is, or the way I've done, or today, or this moment, it's the idea that I will come after you. And when I say worried, I hate that word. I'm concerned in the sense doesn't mean anything other than, wow. I'm wondering if, my original theory was that he was aware that he lost, and, had a hard time accepting it, of course. But I'm wondering, even if he believes that now, I'm wondering if he really doesn't think that the election was stolen from him.
Right. I mean,
and if he does
believe it was stolen.
Yeah. And I think he does believe that Mitch McConnell should have stood up and said the election was stolen from Donald Trump and us and the American people and me. And so we have to do this. And Mitch McConnell is many things, not any of them that I knew positive. But on this case, he's not stupid. Okay. And he knew this election is done. It's over. It's fini. You can grasp at all the straws you want. I've said all along, look, for anybody who's really worried, for anyone who's really worried about Trump's power, this shows how bad it is. He is still, diminished though he is, diminished though he was the day he took office, diminished though he was the day he came down the golden escalator, basically say, only I can save America. He still is the most powerful man in the world. He has the position that allows
25 days to show it,
Now, think about this, Brian, and everybody out there. If you are the most powerful man in the world and the only two legal representatives you can get to come to your side are Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, and in a crazy off, I'm not sure which one would win. That says volumes. It says
right. I mean, they're both insane. I mean,
but see, in the law, Brian, look, I would be very worried. If I were facing an insane gunman, right? Probably more than I would facing a sane gunman, right? Because a sane gunman, it's going to take my money if I give it to him, and it's over. An insane gunman, what would happen?
But don't Powell and Giuliani still have to know. I mean, it seems quite obvious that even when they got to the courts, they couldn't actually state fraud because they had no evidence.
That's what I'm saying, Brian.
So they knew.
That's the point. You kind of jump past the point, but you're right on the money there. The point is that certain things, while law is not about justice, Okay, it's never been about that, or fairness or that kind of thing. It is about presenting evidence, and an insane person can't win in court, and so they don't have anything, so it's not going to go anywhere. The last ditch,
which means Trump doesn't have many options right now. He's really
he doesn't have. Well, he has the ones.
Giuliani's going to play this game, and he's going to separate himself from Sidney Powell because she seems so out there with the QAnon and the Dominion. See, the Dominion thing really, I think, created that wedge. They had to separate Powell and Giuliani because Powell was the one that was talking about the machines. Actually, Giuliani a little bit too. Giuliani's in trouble.
Yeah, they both were.
But they're both shutting the hell up. I think we said this last week.
Well, what's interesting is, there are certain things, and again, this story just gets more curiouser and interesting. Certainly, there were no facts, and I don't know why Dominion decided to do what it did. I think it's warranted what they did because they basically said, it is their. That's the whole thing about libel. You can't put somebody's company or something in jeopardy or slander by saying things that aren't true, and malicious if there's no validity to it, right? And there wasn't. And so my point is that, they actually had Fox News, which was fascinating. I don't listen to Fox News, but I follow it the next day and read about it. And they had some of the commentators like Hannity are saying, yeah, Dominion is, and then they're actually coming out and reading on the news shows about how you can't say that. They're because they know, Fox News knows that they were wrong. You know what, Anthony? One of the great questions, and there's about 472 billion of them in this 4 years, Anthony. But one of the ones I'd like to know is what the hell did happen to Rudy Giuliani? Now, one of the things that I have read, and I think makes a lot of sense, is he, for one moment in time, for about a 3-month period, was the right, let's put it like this, he was in the right place for the right time for him to kind of shine. And that was as mayor of New York. But if you go back and ask, he's been this way a long time. Not to the extent he is, and we throw the words around now. We didn't know. And Brian, I don't in any way want to, denigrate your mother who's suffering from dementia or anybody who is, but we didn't know about dementia 50 years ago, right? We just didn't.
Very little.
And so, and now it's become kind of a catchphrase. Well, he must be suffering from dementia. We said about Trump. We said about Rudy. Not necessarily.
He could just be an asshole too.
Well, I think that's part of what I was trying to say. Not coming around.
I'm just trying to make it simple, like Fox would. He's an asshole.
Well, no, and I agree. But the only thing is that sometimes I have a failure. Many failures, but this is one. I just find that sometimes, he's not stupid. And sometimes in my definition of an asshole, you got to kind of be stupid too. And I know that's not true, but I really do. So certainly, I don't know enough about Sidney Powell. Wow.
Well, I'm going to show you. Can I show you one thing?
Sure,
You've probably seen this, Dave. I want to show everybody this. This comes from Sebastian Gorka, who's another real winner there. But he kind of knew he was talking. He was interviewing Mike Lindell.
I know where you're going.
Mr. Pillow himself. And then he's just smart enough to realize that he's talking about Dominion, and Dominion just put out their order. Don't say another thing about it. So watch Lindell make the mistake here. Hopefully the audio will work here. Let me get this set up correctly here. All right, and I'll take the audio off you and me, Dave, and then we'll come back to it. Okay.
I believe in this president, and I'll tell you what, nobody realizes, what a miracle we had on election night at 11:15. You talked about all this fraud, Doctor. The biggest fraud is the Dominion machines. And at 11:15 on election night, our great president, because of everything
Mike, I don't want to discuss, Mike, we're not going to get into the minutiae of the details. I want to ask you, because this show is about...
Hey there. Okay, let me go back now. Okay, we're back, Dave. There you go. There is a classic example.
I don't want
he knew exactly what he's talking about.
I love the term because a lot of people wouldn't know what that is. Minutia of the details. How often do you hear something like that on Fox?
Right. Well, that's okay. Let's go through the details, Sebastian. I think that would be good.
Well, and what it is, look. But here's the fascinating thing. If you isolate Trump supporters, right? and I'm saying the ones that's the My Pillow guy, really, right? And
And by the way, he's the guy that was putting up money for Kyle
for right,
Rittenhouse.
of
Right.
course, you know. Let's take it a little bit different along those lines. Okay, do you realize tomorrow, if we could have an inauguration, right, which we can't because of the pandemic, or a big one, we won't even have a very small one. Do you realize how many artists, and when I say artists, I'm talking about creative people in all fields, would come and play or speak or sing or have a on behalf of Joe Biden? And Donald Trump, even at his prime, got Ted Nugent, who is the worst one-hit wonder ever. If you want to hear good Ted
he's
Nugent,
no Holdsworth, is he?
let's listen to I mean, there's something wrong with him anyway. But no, he was good in the Amboy Dukes, and they were a band. He was horrible after that. You've got Chachi, you've got Kid Rock, and who knows about what Kid Rock's problem is. And at the end, you had some of these black rappers that I think had done a little bit too much nose candy, maybe, or whatever.
But they're desperate for something there. So
yeah, so I mean that speaks, and so it's the same thing here. Now Gorka is interesting. Of all the players in Trump's orbit, he's the one I know the best.
You've seen him, haven't you?
I've spoken to him on numerous occasions. Yeah, the reason is in days gone by when you could do such things. One of the greatest things about living in the DC area and being retired, or at least retired from the 9 to 5, is you get to go to these think tanks and political. There's just something going on, and it's free. I mean, some nights you have to choose between 9 events or daytime, or I mean, Judy and I, the most we ever did in one day was 5 events, all of which were great. But one of the places that I used to hang out a lot was the Heritage Foundation, and the reason was I used to like. Judy just said I used to like to go over there because I would argue with people, and I did, and. On 2 or 3 occasions, Mr. Gorka and I debated from the floor of their auditorium, and it was really fun to kind of do that. Gorka is not stupid. Now he's a Nazi, okay?
He's a fascist. He's a fascist.
Well, I know. Well, he really is. But what's interesting is he got a lot of his oomph came from being anti-communist, right? I mean, in terms of anti-Russia, and Gorka was the big, and people, but he was always very opinionated. And then as soon as he got bounced, I was there right after he got bounced out from the White House. And he was, poor, pitiful me and all this. I said, well, Mr. Gorka, what about, if your ideas were wrong? What, of course he didn't like that. But anyway, yes. I mean, he's not going to invite me to a Super Bowl party, nor am I going to.
Notice how quickly he tried to shut. He knew there's things going on here. Get him,
there
shut him
are.
the fuck up.
CB, you just hit it. And we were getting to it. That cuts to the chase right there, CB. People and are playing politics with people's lives. And that's not just, verbiage, okay? Unemployment stuff, the rent, the holding of rent coming back in, jobs, the fact of all this, and it's still being politics played. Now, the problem becomes 74 million people basically think the Democrats are the one playing politics. They really do. Donald Trump says, if it weren't for the Democrats, we'd have this. Mitch McConnell says, Democrats are the one holding it up. But they're not, okay? They're not. And you can make a strong argument, even $2,000 is pitiful.
Right, over that amount of time, sure.
Yeah. And I've looked at a few countries, how much they've given. But again, this idea that I don't know how the Republican Party has been able to convince, well, I do know how, that they're the party of the people. They're the party of the people who keep the libtards and the not nice word, one of the few words in the English language I won't say, it begins with N for black people, and the S word or the W word, another 2 words I won't say. I'll say fuck all day long. That doesn't bother me. Denigrating terms for Hispanic people, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what they've been able to do. What I think is fascinating about that to me is the Trumpublicans continue to vote against their own self-interest by voting these people in. They're coming really Thanks
but
a
not
lot.
against their own emotional self-interest.
Well, there you are. Okay. And that's what we're saying. That is where Trump, that's where a con man is good. Somebody earlier, and I really like the comments tonight. They're really, really good. They're flying all over the place, and people can have side comment. And I think that's all part of this show. Yeah, I agree with that. What was it? That's a big thing now. They've just done a study, Kim. I don't know if you've seen it. That now I don't know if it's really true, but it's getting a lot of play. That more intelligent people use fuck more than unintelligent people. I've heard an awful lot of people, intelligent people do it, but I kind of think that I'm somewhat not that smart, but I use it a lot too. The idea is, though, Brian, with this idea you said about the emotional, not against their emotional stance, they've been able to convince people that it's in their best interest. Like, I mean, listen, own the libtards. What the hell does that mean? Is that what own the libtards? What does that mean? You put them down? Well, okay. So you put down the libtards, and now you have no job, and your cousin's an opioid addict, and where's the win in that? Where's the win in that? And I don't get it. I am pleased, I suppose. Not I'm supposed. It's true. It's true, Kim. You know what I was saying. I do know a few people, both family and not so much friends, although a couple of friends, I guess, who actually have seen the light. I mean, literally have seen through it, and did vote for Trump the first time and did not the second time.
So where do you think this is going to go, Dave? With the
Well,
stimulus?
it depends. What you got to be a little bit more.
Stimulus. I mean, look. I mean, that 2,000 number seems so simple.
I have no idea.
First of all, tonight.
I'll comment on it. No, I'm not going to, because I think one of the things we need to do as human beings sometimes is, if you don't know, say you don't know. What I think it's going to come down to, really, is you've got a three-pronged attack, right? You got the Democrats who, as you pointed out earlier, let's do it. Trump said it. The president said it. Let's do it. They offered all kinds of, let's do it in unanimous acclamation. Let's do it. Attached. I understand. I understand. Monday they're going to present a standalone for the $2,000. Right. Nothing else in there.
But I'm worried about how it will be, because I think there's going to be this race, Dave, to frame who's at fault, like they always do.
Well, but Brian, I don't even know if that matters anymore. I mean, it's sad.
It doesn't look like right now, because it isn't signed. It doesn't look like they're going to get it. Just like we're going to get it. None of us.
No. Well, at least not now.
Right, but I'm saying, but when the shit hits the fan, I think then that's when the propaganda machine starts working. Saying, look, the Democrats didn't do it; they had the chance. That kind of thing. We know who really is to blame, because the Democrats.
Well, we know, but you know what? Right. The other side does it. The other side, saying the Trump cult, or those who are still following Trump, think the other side is. Sometime, Brian, I would suggest everybody does this. I mean, it's you feel a little dirty after you do it, but I mean, it's very interesting to go on. Really, not the crazy conservative websites, but those that have some semblance. Their arguments are exactly the same as ours, but it's just they're coming with no basis of evidence, and we are coming from a basis of evidence. So I don't know if it doesn't. What does matter is, and as I think it was CB who put it up there, what does matter is these millions of Americans. Now, fortunately, I don't happen to be one, okay? But that's just by luck and that kind of stuff. And I think we all need to see them as who they are. I don't know about where you live, people. Where I live here, tremendous, and it's not tremendous increase in homeless, a tremendous increase in people going to food shelters. It's just so obvious in this affluent area. I mean, I don't help contribute to the affluence that much. Not poor by any stretch of the imagination, but it's one of the richest areas in the country. And to see what's going on here, I can't imagine, I can imagine. I mean, I have been in Southeast DC, I've been in New York. I've been through Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, which is probably, in my estimation, the poorest state in the nation. How do you argue How do you make a stand over $600 or $2,000?
I'll tell you how you do it, Dave. When you have these states where in the wealthy areas of the states, you had so many goddamn drop-off boxes, it wasn't even funny. You had so many different places to vote, but in the poor places in these states that we're talking about, you had to struggle to find. So this again, there's a different, it's a completely different state of tune. We're here in the key of C, and they're like an E flat minor here.
Well, no, you could almost make that work. They're in the. I love your analogy. I'm going to do a little something with it, if I may.
Sure.
We are in the key of C. We both played in bands for a long, long time, off and on, and it's kind of the universal key. If you're not playing in C, it's kind of
right.
No flats, no sharps, easy to play in for everybody, except horn players. They want E flats and B flats
because the guitarists like to have the open strings. If
they
play an E flat,
and the keyboards. There are a lot of keyboardists.
Right.
Not who was it? George Gershwin. One of the greatest
Irving
composers.
Berlin. It was Berlin. Gershwin can't play in any key. He could.
What?
But it was Berlin. Irving
who
Berlin.
Only played the black keys, right?
Right. George Gershwin, he's okay. Believe me.
Yeah,
no,
okay. I knew it was one of those.
It's definitely Irving Berlin, right?
Yeah, and writes these songs, but that's the exception.
Key of F. I think it was key of F.
But what happens is we're playing, when I say we, Democrats, liberals, people with some sense, are playing in the key of C, and they're playing in the key of H flat. And because it's not even a key that's anywhere on a recognizable spectrum of chord, or key changes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Bri. I don't even think about it much, but I usually don't. Just there's so much to focus on right now. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. If they said tomorrow, look, you've got 1 year, 10 years, whatever. But we want to make the name of the page you and Brian, or the idea that you and Brian started, Divided We Stand, you not to be able to use it. I have no idea where you even begin to bring these people.
And by the way, if you think about it, Dave, why would we be hopeful at all that somehow the right thing would be done? Why would all of a sudden something change before the 20th that, yeah, the Republicans would agree to give the $2,000? No, they're always going to put the monkey.
I will give you how that could happen.
I don't know how it does, because at an emotional level, it just doesn't happen.
Remember, Brian, if you're going to say how do they do the good thing or the right thing, that's not going to happen. If you're looking at motive, what is at stake right now, and this is why I wonder what Mitch McConnell is thinking right now. Mitch McConnell's life, if you will, power life, there are two options. One is he continue to be the majority leader of the Senate. The other that he's just the ranking Republican senator, right? And that all hinges on a race in Georgia with 2 seats. The Republicans are kind of in the driver's, I guess, seat there for a few reasons. It was a very strong Republican state. It may not be now.
And they're making it very difficult to do.
You mentioned that before. However, the Democrats have Stacey Abrams, who's very good at organizing in the state of Georgia, which she knows. But that's kind of winner take all in the sense of for Mitch McConnell. So right now, those 2 senators are out there saying, well, we got this package and it was the best deal we could get for you. And now suddenly, it's making even news in Georgia. People can read Donald Trump is more admired in Georgia than the Republican Party. And Donald Trump says, oh, no, this is terrible. You need the $2,000. You've got, the crazy lady we talked about earlier, the attorney, and another attorney's been with him. They're down there saying, look, don't vote. This is terrible. Because they're the Dominion machines don't work.
Yeah, they're going to vote. They're going to vote. Okay.
I'm not so sure about that.
I don't care what it takes. They're going to get them out. Even if they have to say, hey, the machines are fine. We're just kidding. Get out there and vote.
No, you don't have to say that.
They're going to cheat somehow.
No, Brian, all that's true. But you know who has to say that? I think you're underestimating the power of Donald Trump as leader. It is. Look. It's clear they don't follow republicanism. They don't follow the Republican
Party. And that's true. You're absolutely right.
They follow Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump somehow says, I've looked at it and I'm going to sign this, It's not the best thing, but okay, I'm going to sign it. But if he keeps it up, and why would he keep it up? Because he wants to show Mitch McConnell that he's more powerful than McConnell.
Which shows you he really didn't care, as you've said all
nobody.
along.
I don't know that somebody said before, how did Mitch McConnell is in one of the dumber states in the United States, Kentucky. They take what, $5 for every dollar.
It's at least like $2 for every dollar.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's just they live on myth.
Nothing against Ryan Velez because he'll.
No, you're never against everybody. I'm just saying, but the majority of state,
but he's still not helping out the people up in the hills.
No, he's not. And again, they're back to they live the myth of white supremacy and all that kind of thing. So it really comes down to two men, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. And I don't see either one is not known for their ability to compromise. Neither one of them is known for their ability to step outside of themselves. Neither one of them could do the right thing. If you spotted it, that doesn't mean they couldn't stumble on it. They couldn't do it for the right motive. And so people say, well, what do you mean? What? Look, if McConnell is majority leader, he is the most powerful elected official in the Republican Party. Okay? He wasn't when Donald Trump was there. Donald Trump was the most powerful leader in the Republican Party. But you're going to have a Democratic president and you're going to have a Democratic House.
And by the way, to show that Dave's right about that, think about what happened in Georgia with Kemp. I mean, these people liked Kemp. And then all of a sudden, when Trump said, your governor's, they were going against booing him and going after him. And like he's a Democrat.
And that's what's so interesting in this weight of this Godzilla, that gives him too much power. But Godzilla didn't care about he was just destructive until he turned good. But in the original, he was just
Godzilla.
And but what happens is in this battle, I believe Donald Trump and you got to remember, we said it before. I believe that. I mean, Donald. It's all about. It's. I can't even describe the loyalty. It's loyalty of the moment. How much did Mitch McConnell do for Donald Trump? How much did Donald Trump do for Mitch McConnell? 4 years of doing for each other, right?
Right, and now it's over.
And it's over because McConnell realizes the reality, and he used him for as long as he could. But Trump doesn't realize. Right. And so now Mitch McConnell has betrayed him. And
also, isn't it Pence is in the same situation now too?
Well, now Pence has he has
a tough call. But Pence may want a future.
I think if I were Pence, I'd just
Pence
say,
is going to have to do the right thing if he wants a future.
Well, here's the thing. I think Pence's best bet is to take Air Force Two and disappear until January 22nd and come back. But that's another thing too.
Because already he's gotten Trump pissed off. He doesn't feel like he's come through enough.
Well, you don't, you
Will
can't.
he become another Bill Barr and say, look, I've got a future after this, and I've got to protect myself.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Mr. Borden. I just hope we don't make the mistake of looking at him and saying, well, on his last day, he did his right thing. Well, that's. Yeah,
and that's the thing too. Doesn't it irk you? Like they seem to be doing that, where all of a sudden, like you're gonna throw all the bad things away because he came through at the end. He's such a great guy. Like, I'm gonna help with the vaccines now. That kind of thinking with governors. Like all of a sudden, I'm gonna give someone like Brian Kemp credit or somebody.
No, you can't because
Florida DeSantis.
It's sort of like I don't like that sports. I shouldn't. Let me do it the other way. I don't like that politics is so much like sports. Win and lose, and that's all. And batting average. These are election wins. But nobody gets in the Hall of Fame with 1 year, right? And nobody should. You have to look at the whole record for an athlete. Correct. You have to look at the whole record for a politician. I wouldn't want to be Mr. Pence right now if I had any feelings toward him.
And Trump's going to want to know before the 5th. He's going to want to know, like, right now, what are you going to do? He wants to know now. And if he doesn't feel it, he's going to come after him.
Well, but again, his options are limited too. I don't think you fire the vice president.
I don't think he can he? I mean, he can't. Really.
That's what I said. So,
but he can abuse him in the press, and of course, that would send his people against him.
I understand.
Though in Indiana, they're so fucking stupid
But
sometimes.
here's the other side
I'm
of
not,
it.
if you're from Indiana, I'm sorry, but that state is just.
No, yeah, it's my least favorite state in the union. It just clearly my. I mean, I'm sorry. They're good people that live there, but they ain't my relatives. My relatives are just shit bad people, and they live there.
Your relative shit the bed a long time ago, didn't he?
Oh, and I went to a wedding there. I got to say this. It doesn't. It's not a reflection. It's a
They
reflection
serve porn?
on our family. Not anybody's. Went to a wedding there, and it was going to be a relatively informal wedding. And there was actually a family, Brian, dressed in overalls with matching T-shirts of purple. And I'm going. I mean, I went crazy.
Which makes you think the liberals in Indiana really deserve a lot of credit. I mean, the intelligent people,
Oh,
those ones who
absolutely.
really, those
I've
people
look,
are dealing
look,
with a lot of nonsense
look,
on the other side.
it is so easy.
You know.
Anybody who's liberal in America, come
So
live
don't be
where I
completely
do.
critical. I know you're out there, intelligent people in Indiana. I know you're
Oh,
cool.
no, well,
you know.
see, I don't even like that we have to do that anymore.
Right.
That's part of that. Well, I don't mean that. Well, of course you don't mean everyone. I mean,
Right.
you know, but overall, Indiana is not an impressive
It's a
state.
weird state because, you know, it's so conservative.
Even for a few months after that wedding, I stopped eating corn because I thought it might come from Indiana. I wasn't real sure. Back to our dilemma here for Mr. Penso.
Right.
There are people now. He's actually getting death threats too, and we'll remember this, saying, because what they think and what Trump thinks, Trump doesn't understand. That's a formality. I mean, it's never occurred before. You know, how is Pence going to not certify the votes, and how is that going to hold up? And again, we have to remember that even if there's if there is some way, eventually Joe Biden will be president. All right. But you know who's president if it's not Biden and it's not Trump? It's Nancy Pelosi. So
right. That's the last thing they want.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I guess they all equate them that way. But yeah, but now back to Georgia. I think the unfortunate thing is, and I may be proven wrong later, but even very early on, before you knew it was going to come down to Georgia, I was very impressed with. But I didn't follow many states, but I did live there for a while. So when you live somewhere, you kind of follow a little bit more than Indiana, where I've never lived. And I think John Ossoff and the Reverend will be tremendous for America. Tremendous. One man comes from the John Lewis. Was taught by John Lewis. The other was taught by Martin Luther King and comes out of that and is the pastor at King's Church. So it's even more than that. But I mean, it's all on the table there. And, so how does that factor in? Does McConnell give in hoping that he'll keep his power, or does he hold it? Does Trump then say it doesn't matter? I want $4,000. And you're right. That's not why he's not signing. There's other things in that bill that he does not
He wants
like.
those other things.
Yeah.
And you're right. He wants to put pressure on those people who have not been loyal to him. He expects
he knows and from business. And not only does he want to have retribution, he wants to make sure they never have power again if he can.
Right.
So this is personal.
And they would deserve it too, Dave.
Well, the problem is that somebody bad in that has to win, Trump or McConnell. It's, which bad do you want?
I'm just afraid that you think I don't know that either one of those Democratic candidates will win, only because of the way that's set up.
But again, we can't say anything, right? It's right there. But I think you look at what's going on. Record numbers, again,
favors
a national
usually
focus.
The Democrats.
It does.
But now some of the Republicans are getting hip to mail-in voting too.
Well, but it's still Georgia's changing.
It's a cool thing.
Georgia's changing, man. Atlanta. I mean, okay. You say, well, why Georgia? Because Atlanta is huge. I mean, it's
the big airport too. Also,
a metropolitan area, and so you've got the white Klan country, right? And you've got this burgeoning international conclave that's just pushing out. I mean, I lived there. Their suburbs. I watched.
And hockey is a popular sport with high school kids there now.
There you are. You're right. CB loves revenge, and so this will have to play out. Let's put it like this. Before this, if you had told me there was going to be a runoff election in Georgia, or two runoffs, and the Republicans were going to lose both, I would have said you're absolutely absurd. And again, it's become an issue, and an issue that people feared that didn't come to the fray. We've said it before. I will say it till the day that I leave the planet. Every non-Black American who believes Donald Trump needed to be defeated needs to thank a large group of people and a subgroup within that group. And the large group are African American voters, and the subgroup are the women. Whether it was getting Joe Biden back on track, and I really believe this. I mean, people can argue with me all day, and that's fine. I think that Joe Biden might have been the only candidate, now that I look at how close the race was, who could have actually beaten Donald Trump.
I would agree with Human here to a certain extent in terms of determinism. But I think, I don't know where you're going with that, Human. If you mean the environment, you're talking about the capitalist system. As the general, I would say that, it's more, I think more directly his parents, number one, that put him in that position. You have the legacy wealth, you have the upbringing. But yeah, I mean, in general, we are what we're around, but we could say the whole universe is like that in that sense.
Here's and you and I, we're not going to do one of our famous
determinism, free will, because you're not really free will. I want everyone to understand that. Even though Dave and I have arguments with him, he's like light determinism, I'm hard determinism, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I still think, if there's nothing else, I hold to this belief, and no one will ever change it, that there are moments, even if everything's determined, or it's 99.999% heredity, raising environment, determined. Some people believe there's a God manipulating it, all that. I still think there are a few moments where you make a decision that you didn't have to make, and Donald Trump didn't have to run for president, even though and the thing is, no one will convince me of this, because I couldn't believe Donald Trump if he told me the best people that I still know in newspapers come out of New Jersey. They were with the Christie campaign. I saw some friends that were working covering there, and they said that when Christie and Trump were still good buddies, that Trump said basically he really thought he would be out of the race in the October before the vote. He was getting into it. He got into it to increase his brand. He did not get into it to be the president of the United States. Suddenly, you can date that remark from the date he said about the Mexican rapists. All of a sudden, that he found what resonated. And then the other thing you could see, there was a Donald Trump prior to the Chicago. Remember where the violence broke out at that one rally, and after, and he just went that way. So yeah, I mean, by all circumstances, the way I raised and felt, I should feel some, I suppose, compassion for Trump. A terrible mother, certainly if not a terrible mother, one who scares the shit out of me looking at her. And she was a terrible mother, from all we know, from Laura and some others. I mean, his cousin, his father. We know his father was a prick. I mean, we know that he was a prick to people. He was a prick to his own son. We know that Trump inherited this. There's
and we're not saying. I hope you're not saying that because we got this comment down here that we're not saying that everybody in the 1% is like Donald Trump's father either, because there are. Well, there's people in the 99% that aren't cool either. I mean, it's the whole thing. Poor are no picnic, as it is, but they're not.
But I mean, so I mean, that wasn't. I don't think where that was CB going. But I mean, I've had people say, well, to me who know me, well, wait a minute, you've always said, and I said yes, but remember, always means exceptions too. Donald Trump to me is possibly, now I didn't live in Adolf Hitler's time. I mean, I haven't lived around the world, so I can only look at it. He is to me the most, in a way, the most enigmatic person, and in some ways the most understandable. Well, how can that be? Well,
he's
because
predictable. He's predictable.
Trump is an oxymoron, and he's just a moron sometimes. I think he's both.
But he's a dangerous. By the way, Brian, can I add this in here, Dave?
Sure. It's your show.
I didn't really want to go into this, and I won't. But you've seen Masha Gessen.
Absolutely.
She left Russia because
brilliant. She is brilliant.
She's been a brilliant journalist in both countries. So she's essentially thrown out of Russia because she worked in Moscow,
right?
With a magazine there against Putin, and she said in I don't know if you even have it here, Dave. Maybe I can just quickly.
Okay, sure. It's always
Yeah,
nice
I
to
mean, I'll
call it up.
just so people can see this.
No, it's always
This goes back to June. It doesn't really matter but before, I'd say about a year ago, Gessen was basically saying that in no way are things as bad here as they are in Russia, which is true, but kind of intimated that it's much worse with Putin. But now she's changed the tune because now she understands America even more. Now she's been here for a while. She saw what happened with Black Lives Matter movement, and now she's changed her mind, and she says he's worse. And I can go through this, but I don't want to. But the idea is, what she was saying is that at least Putin, as much as he's a sick son of a bitch and he's a liar and he lies all the way through, he does love his country. Now, we can say that. He does love Russia. He's very nationalist. Trump, on the other hand, has no love for this country, as you've said. It's a facade. So in that sense, Gessen is saying that this guy's more dangerous. And if we don't stop him, this thing could go the other way. And it almost did.
And it did. But see, I think that's a key point that we all have to keep in our minds. We did stop him. We stopped him from having a second term. That's right. One stop. He will not be as powerful on January 21st as he will be up until noon on January 20th. Okay? That is fact. That is fact. Will he still be dangerous? Yes. Will he still have a following? Yes. Will he still have, and I don't know that him having an ultimate impact on the Republican Party is such a bad thing. I don't see them. I mean, how does, he's not, he thinks he's going to, and the thing that's in the back of this that we can't go out and based on, I'll be surprised if Donald Trump makes it through to the next election without either pleading guilty or being found guilty of criminal charges or leaving the country to avoid that.
If he knew he was going to be put away, he would definitely leave the country.
Well, I mean, I would think so, but who would take him? Where would he go? I mean, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that's not fact yet. But and it doesn't enter into his mind. And I think the thing is, he's not a planner. He is of the moment. Right. And could you imagine? And people have written about it. If he were a planner, but had all the characteristics
there's your Putin right there.
There you are, and I think Marcia. Like I said, I mean, I'm so fortunate. I keep saying that not because I'm special or anything like that, but when you live in Washington, D.C. and you don't have to work 9 to 5, you get to run into the smartest. You can choose who are the smartest people. They come through the town. Right. Today, one of my idols, I guess, writing idols, give anything to write like him, Dave Barry. I mean, I've had a chance 2 or 3 times to sit down, with him. Nothing special about me. He shows up at a bookstore, he hangs out, we talk, and he speaks, and I hear him. And that kind of stuff. So Marcia is one of those people. So I would certainly value it. We just talked briefly about that, Brian, before we went on the air, just a couple seconds about it, or not maybe 10 seconds. And I think another reason I would agree with Marcia, he's more dangerous is, and you kind of alluded to it or said it, Putin does care about Russia, but Trump is anti-American. I mean, he's everything that America shouldn't be, he is. America, and this is something I really want to address, not tonight, but in the coming weeks after we get into phase 3. So it'll be after January 9th. What in our Constitution needs to be changed to avoid having this happen again?
And how do you get the Constitution changed?
Well, there are ways.
I agree with you, but we got to.
But that's what I'm saying, and then looking at what the best ways to do that, and what are those some things that are in there? First of all, you have to think, and you do. How many years ago now? More than 250, right? Years. Things have changed so much. Can any document, really exist today that is that old? I don't know. I mean, let's look at it. America then consisted of 13 states. America then was a slaveholding nation. There was a lot of compromise in there across the board to allow the Southerners to keep their slaves. The Electoral College falls under that category. It was interesting. They were very divided, just like liberals and conservatives. I mean, between the Federalists and the Jeffersonian Democrats. But they all kind of held out a hope that there wouldn't be political parties. And by the second presidential election, they had them. And they've been with us ever since. But even they, I don't think, could imagine that a party would control and sell its soul to a renegade or rogue president like the Republican Party did. And so, we're not going to get, I mean, I don't have a direct pipeline to George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or James Madison, but I'm sure if they were here today, they would say there's some things to be changed. And Jefferson himself said, basically something along the lines of, a little revolution periodically is a good thing. And what they did give us, Brian, which is the lasting legacy of them, they gave us a way to stage a revolution without firing a shot. And that is our elections. And that's where Trump and his followers are subhuman, anti-American.
Because they're trying to steal that.
Bigger terrorists than Al-Qaeda. They're the biggest terrorists ever in the history of America. And because there you are, HLS is exactly right. Again, in that time, why were we so anti-King? Why did we have that Second Amendment? Because we were so fearful of an organized standing army, which we have now. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on about things we need to examine. Now, is it easy? No. In this divided America, could you not? And not to defend the Trumpers, and I was going to get these statistics before we came on the air. So if anybody knows them, or you can look them up real quickly, I suppose I could, but I'm lazy tonight. But in fact, it was Eric Trump. Think about this: being the dumb Trump. Wow, what does that mean? I mean, Eric is a dumb Trump. Wow, that's like being, I don't know what. I don't know, the least potent COVID virus in the world. I don't know what that means. But he came up, and a couple of people, they said, well, look, my dad won whatever the number of counties were, in America. And Biden won, 17 counties or something. Well, it's not about that. It's about population in relation to a state. But, I mean, some of this, and I've said it all along, and I'm going to go out saying it. I mean, I didn't see the virus coming in, but so I still, if you can remove that just for a moment, I still thought that something good would come out of the Trump reign, and I think it will. I think if this wasn't a wake-up call for all of us, no matter where you are, or who you are, or what side you are, then woe unto those who don't see it that way. And for us to say, it can't happen here, it did. We were very unfortunate to escape with, and that feels so inappropriate to say, because there's a large percentage of 300,000 people who aren't here anymore because of Trump's lack of actions. But still, having said that, considering that we're going to have a country with a humane, decent person as leader in a few weeks, says that we survived this round. And Brian, not because I said it, I was even surprised at some of the lower courts, but the courts did their job. So the idea of what the founding fathers put in by that, keeping different branches and that certainly worked, in terms of doing its own. And I think there's some justice too, that a number of those rulings, not just the Supreme Court ruling, but others were done by judges that Trump appointed. So at least in this particular case, if anybody gets any kind of reward for doing their job, it would be, certainly not Congress because of the Republicans, certainly not the presidency because of Trump. But I think the courts held the tide this time, but we can't rely on them all the time. So a lot of changes. Any comments come up that we need to? I mean, I've been following them.
They're all great really comments, but I think they just kind of complement some of the things we've been saying.
And like I said,
really an argument here. Just
no, I don't mean that. I like that.
CB, everybody, great commentary. I mean,
I like that because
especially for those who are watching it, the recorded version of the show, because that way there's just a lot
and
of information.
And that's the other thing. People said. Not like we have 4 billion fans, but people have asked, wouldn't it be cool to have a call in? And I suppose it would, in a way. But the problem, I would never want to turn a caller away. I mean, I just don't think you could do that. And then you leave yourself. I mean, you can pre-time them and bring them in. So I think we may relook that when we start. And again, people, if you're not aware of this, in after when we go into phase 3, we're going to be shaping this show a little bit differently. We're talking about a live show plus a pre-recorded show, which allows to do a lot of different things. Both shows will be less than this. It'll probably be still a total of 2 hours. But it'll give us a chance to just do some other things. Brian claims he works really hard at school. I don't quite get that.
I do.
I remember I used to when I did it.
But we, in general, folks, we constantly experiment, and we've always had this question. What would this be like if we had an edited show? And you give up a lot when you have an edited show.
Oh, absolutely.
You gain. And it's nice to have preparation. It's nice to be able to put everything in a nice little category. It's like those cheeses that the Germans have. They're all nicely packaged.
Yeah, those
kind of things.
That's a good analogy. Yeah,
it's nice and pretty. You're putting a bow on it. But Dave and I, as teachers, were never like that. We're more like this. However, I think there's something to be said when you do have time to work on something, and sometimes creativity kind of works through that better than this kind of. But still, we want to keep this.
No doubt. Well, I think there's a couple real good reasons for us to do what we're planning to do. One of those is this is a new medium for me, and I think for you too, relatively for everybody. Meaning, this isn't usually what happens.
This is going to be it. I'm saying this is going to be the way a lot of the things are going to be done in the future.
Okay. Now, you have to adjust to the media, right? To the medium you're in. And this allows you the luxury of doing both. So why not do both, as you said? For example, one of the things would be tonight, and we've had this before, a person that we know, admire, something came up, right? Fortunately, we never rely on...
Right.
You and I carry this, and
we're ready to go at 8 o'clock, more like.
Yeah, whatever, right? And it does, because we don't play, and that's fine, and that's good. But if that happened, you wouldn't have, you'd still have time to do a second day taping. I'm doing a secondary show now, which I know we don't make money on it, but that doesn't stop us. We can't toot our own horn. I'm not going to after this. But it's on one of my other passions, which is classic rock and roll and music. And so I have a talk show similar to this, but along those lines now. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. Learning from this show, we're going to have a short weekly live thing because you get the spontaneity. I will never. I was talking to people today. I will never, ever, 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 ever enjoy this as much as doing this in front of a live audience.
And by the way, folks, you should also understand. We were discussing how we're going to change things. We've had a lot of success on the Facebook page because not only. We started off with 3 members, you know what I mean? And then it shot.
And 2 of them, if I recall, I think Joey was the only one that wasn't in prison.
Joey was our...
no, Joey was our... The other 2 were in prison, and Trump didn't pardon them. I don't understand. He pardoned everybody else.
Not only is it a successful public page, but it's successful not in terms... the numbers are nice, but it's a very active page. And,
that's true.
People will watch... They won't watch this live on Facebook. There are few, but... It will run through and it will watch the recorded version of it. But YouTube is this untapped thing, because that's usually, if you had to be a success in any one thing, you'd probably want to be YouTube or Twitch. Well,
that's designed. Facebook really started as pictures. Well, no, it started as, let's say what it started as. It started as a way to rate hot girls at Ivy League campuses and evolved from that. That's really what it was. So it also had its original sin, and Zuckerberg is no prize. But it really is primarily, its purpose was pictures and words, and YouTube is
video. It's just
video, and
music.
And there'll be more. I didn't realize until I got involved with this program that Periscope was actually part of Twitter. And they're going to find something else because this constantly evolves and changes. Now, the other risks we run, though, Brian, and we all have to be aware of that in this business, which is a business now. People are inundated with this kind of stuff. Fortunately, I got out of anything. I've never. Do you know this? I just thought of this. I've never had to participate in a mandatory Zoom conference. When you don't have a position that you're hired for, which I haven't had for now 10 years, Well, the museum, but I mean that was an active possession. Where we're doing that. You don't have to do that. And so we have to run I think we also we have a responsibility to try and do different things. I really would like to do not just a shout out, but really I don't just say this. I mean, I've been really, and who cares? Let me preface it this way. But I've been really impressed with the people on this page, the active ones, like you said, Brian. Mm-hmm. I would hope that some of them, they might not want to go on to a live show, but they might want to do 5-minute or 7-minute. I mean, I would love to get, I'm not going to say anyone's name because then I'm going to leave out.
And it's easy for us to send them a link too. So
that's what I meant. And I think that's the thing. If the other thing, it's just like everything, things have to change and evolve. I'll go first tonight to close, if you don't mind, because it's your show.
Can we just make a quick? I just want to.
Oh no,
I just want to mention that we plan on saying that this was not a big deal. It's just that Trump. It seems like he's making motion that he wants to have the airport, which I've been at, West Palm.
Yeah, see that I didn't see that today.
Yeah, real quick.
I didn't know. So assume you're talking.
We don't have to
like
make any big deal of it because
no,
it's not a big deal.
I think it is a big deal.
Trump would like to have the airport in West Palm named after him as Trump International Airport. Now, he hasn't said it outright, but it looks like a lot of people, and they're already having problems with Mar-a-Lago. As far as
they don't want him
there. They don't want him here. So, he already wants things named after him. So it's pretty sick because they want their libraries and this, but someone like Trump, he's just an absolute disgrace. Now there'll be some states that'll be willing to do that. Obviously a Republican state, but I still wonder what the hell happened there. I still wonder about Florida. I mean, I don't want to make a whole show about that, but I still wonder about the voting in Florida. You know what I mean? I'm not so sure Trump won. But
I'll try to keep this brief. Donald Trump's only cared about TRUMP being on buildings. And some of them they didn't do so well. The Taj Mahal, his prime casino, is going to be imploded to let other things go on. And so he's been a failure at everything he's ever done. The con man, though, doesn't bother me, just reinvents himself and goes on. But the naming is funny. When you told me that, and I was not aware of it, I was thinking, oh, God, it had to be obviously we came, I'm trying to think, maybe 3 years ago. So it would have been in the first year or maybe early on in Trump's second year of his presidency. I was down, one of my favorite places to go, and again, in D.C. could do that, are the memorials. You can never visit them too many times. And yes, I know they're all about wars and not peace, and that's a problem. But I don't really visit those as much as I do the ones to people. So I really like the Martin Luther King one. One of my favorites is to FDR. It's one of the best done ones. And I was there at FDR, and you always learn something. And I don't know, my wife was looking at something, and I was just sitting on a bench, and this group of young people, probably millennials, come by. And I couldn't help but hear their conversation. I said, this was really something. I mean, I didn't, I knew FDR was pretty important, but I didn't realize that. And one of them said, I wonder what there'll be for Donald Trump. And they all broke out laughing at the same time. And, I started thinking about that. Well, Richard Nixon, he has his library, and they've already said there will be a presidential library. That's
I hope he puts it in Miami, because by that time it'll be underwater.
It could well be. DC may be under too. We're not looking so good at this point, at least around the National Mall and the White House. But anyway, there will be that. He will fight for everything. My other thought tonight is we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the next minute holds. Hopefully we'll stop talking at some point and people can stop listening to us. But short of that, we don't even know when that'll be. But certainly the resentful, regretful, hate-filled Southerners who put up the monuments to remind people that they should join the Klan in the 20s and 30s. I mean, that's the thing with most of the Civil War. They didn't come after the Civil War. They came as a design thing to the daughters of the Confederacy to remind the men to protect our honor and do this. And they're coming down now every day, right? So, if something goes up for Trump someday, will it be torn down?
Like Robert E. Lee or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to think. I mean, we don't know. I mean, you've already got what, and this was 2 years ago, 200 of the most respected historians got together to rate presidents. And so Trump had 2 years, and he was last on all 200 historians lists. And if you know anything about historians, they don't agree on anything. They're sort of like the Democrats, right? They just don't agree. And I mean, and he certainly has done nothing to move his status ahead forward. Michael Beschloss, who probably of all of them is the best presidential historian, or because I always wonder, is he my favorite? Yeah, he's my favorite, but he's up there. If he's not the best, he's among them. I mean, he just disparages him every single day, whether it's on CNN or on his Twitter feed. So I mean, the future, I guess, if I had a crystal ball, I would know better. I'm going to really take a cop out here. I'm not real sure what Trump will do in the next how many days, Brian? Do you have them counted?
I believe. If it's the 20th, you basically have 25 days left.
In the next 25 days, I have no idea what he will do. I do believe this. There's nothing he can do that will make him be president on the 26th day. I do believe that, and I think he makes it harder every day for any kind of post-pardon to be given to him. Will he pardon himself? Could be. Now he's attacked Pence. Would Pence really want to pardon him now? I don't know. Pence wants to be president. He wanted to be president.
He does want to be president.
Well, he wanted to be president before Trump. Chris Christie's
Why would
back.
he want to help out Trump unless he wanted to be president?
Well, because, again, Brian, this is the first time in my lifetime. I mean, yes, people loved FDR. I wasn't alive for that. People loved Kennedy. But I think it was interesting. People loved the idea of John Kennedy more than the man himself. And he was also reviled enough to be assassinated.
Thanks, Joey. He confirmed.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. But and so that's what I'm saying. This next 25 days. Okay, let's look at the major players. Okay. Yeah, Pelosi's always a major player, but she just sits it out. She's done what she had to do, and the Democrats have done what they have to do. Give the people $2,000 and we'll vote it in. We're fine with everything else. We're even finer or better with the $2,000. So it really comes down right now to three players: Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and Vice President Pence. And they each have vested interests in their future. And the one with the card that Trump still holds, though, and he holds this until the day that he is convicted or accepts a pardon or pleads guilty to a crime. The day he leaves the moment he leaves the White House, and I do want to say Rachel Maddow has said that she doesn't think he's going to return. There's a possibility.
Return
from Boca Raton, from Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago.
And that's been a theory all along. That he may not. I don't subscribe to it, but I think it's a real possibility.
Is he going to consider that a second White House or something? The alternate White House?
He'll work from there, and he's not doing anything. I mean, what the hell? Golf courses, right? Yeah, golf courses there. I mean, he's been the lamest of the lame duck presidents in far of doing anything.
But don't you think Pence really does have he really is in the hot seat right now because.
Oh, I said before, if I felt for any of the three,
but he doesn't deserve it though. He deserves it.
And there you are. Look, he may deserve it more than others because the man claims to be a Christian. I mean, he claims to be. Now, I'm sure there are people across America, a wide swath of people, as they say, who would argue with me. I maintain that you cannot be a Christian and support Donald Trump. They're antithetical positions. You cannot do it. You cannot do it. Because if you ask what would Jesus do and you ask what Donald Trump would do, you get two opposing decisions for every single question in the world, right? Yes, the general's in charge. They're going to hold the line.
They've already said that, which is great, that they would not.
Well, also, the other thing is, they're not stupid. They realize more than some that, they don't have any doubt that Biden's going to be president. Do you really want to get off? I mean, first of all, the thing that I find, and we'll do a show on this, how Trump reflects Shakespearean and classical Greek myths. I can do a whole series. No, we'll do a show on that. It'd be fun afterwards. But you don't attack everybody and expect any help at the end. He attacked the FBI, the CIA, the State Department,
Supreme Court,
Supreme Court.
Them weak.
The majority leader, the military. He doesn't have any support of anyone in the loyalty that he demands. He does have support from some political people who realize, Nunez is not going anywhere.
Right.
Jordan is not going anywhere.
Political position, so he can.
And I'm going to go out tonight and make a comment that in my lifetime, now I haven't known every senator, but the Auburn football coach that's coming, I'm going to predict that he will be, intelligence-wise, the dumbest person to sit in the Senate in my lifetime. Not because he's doing what Trump wants, just because he didn't even know there were 3 branches of government. I mean, think about that. That's there. But this power play, which I think, Tommy Tuberville. I would rather it have been Nick Saban, but he still wants to win some other championships. Now, maybe Nick will run against him. I don't know. That would be interesting. But this battle, and you know what's sad though, and I want to come back. I think it was CB's comment, whoever's here. We're talking tonight like this is, and we really are, Brian. We're talking like this is some kind of intellectual exercise, because it is in a certain respect, but it's not if you've lost everything. And there are so many Americans that in this Christmas time, before now and next Tuesday, who have lost what little bit they had. And we really are, they are playing with lives.
As they have been all along with COVID.
I know, but this is come on.
Something they could do something about it. This
is something.
House over your head, a roof over your head.
Yeah, come on, man. I mean, and it's inevitable. What I find is interesting, unless they're banking on this, it's inevitable that Biden will be, more concerned with people than Trump did. I like that your best friend, Mr. McConnell, if it's believed, I don't know if you saw the remarks he made to Republican donors in Kentucky, same remarks he made for Obama, being quoted as saying, I don't know if they have it on tape. I hope they do. It'll make it more believable, but just something that I'm paraphrasing here, but it doesn't matter. He says, I'm going to just make sure that they will nothing that the Democrats propose, even if I agree it's a good idea, will get through. I mean, nothing. Well, there's a way to govern. Okay. Now, whether he really means it or was saying it,
or we're saying, we don't know if he actually said it, but it sounds
A, we don't know that he said it. B, we don't know, again, in context, was he saying it because he knew what they wanted to hear? How deep is this supposed, not best friend, but some kind of friendship, supposedly between McConnell?
And by the way, I'm going to interrupt you because there was a great interview that I think it was Chris Hayes had with somebody who said that, what Biden's going to have to do is, because they're, the Republicans are going to be probably intransigent, that he should just go ahead and get what he can get. Executive orders, just do what he has. Don't make the mistake that Obama made.
Well, and again, I
hope that Biden doesn't pull this.
I would defer to Mr. Obama on this, but I think he had two. I shouldn't say goals. He had two responsibilities to his race. One was to win, and he did that. And a second was to win a second term. And what's amazing is, unlike Trump, he did it above board and fair, right? So I'm sure there's some decisions in retrospect that he might have done differently had he been willing to be a one-term president. And that's the other thing to remember. Joe Biden is going in now. The only way that Joe Biden will be a second-term president, in my estimation, because of his age, because of the wear and tear it will take, is if the country is doing so well that almost by acclamation, they call him, to do that. I think he really is going with the idea of coming in and being a one-term president. And that makes a whole bunch of difference. It really does. Right. Because you'll do things, first of all, you don't have time, right? We have to do it now. We don't have 8 years.
And he really does have to do it anyway because of what has happened.
On certain things, of course, the economy,
undo a lot of this Trump crap.
The pandemic.
And you got to go after them, like Keith Olbermann has said.
Yeah. Except
I mean, there's
again,
sedition going on there.
Brian,
They wanted to have the military.
I'm gonna play. I'm not gonna play devil. You and I discuss this a lot, and we come kind of different things. I'm going to say that yes, but would you put retribution ahead of getting control of the pandemic?
No, of course not.
All right, stop there for a minute. Don't say it. Don't explain. That's absolutely. Would you put retribution ahead of getting the economy stabilized?
No, I wouldn't.
And I'm just saying. So yes, retribution is part of that package, and I think you have to do that. Just simply to tell
right. It's the right thing.
I see you always go to that right thing. I'm not. I just think
there's something good about the right thing.
I don't disagree, but remember, for every right thing, somebody thinks it's the wrong
because
thing.
They've been taking advantage of us when we keep playing this game.
It's not even that. What you have to show is what they did, and you say who's they? Trump's administration, and the elected officials who supported him was anti-American. And you can't let that behavior go and not pay a penalty for it for the next person. It's sort of like being a classroom teacher. Sometimes you had to be a little bit more draconian with a student than you really wanted to be, just because. And I was the most laissez-faire, laid-back teacher in the history of teaching, probably. But there were times I had to do that because I know if I let that go, I've lost a whole lot more.
Class.
And I think Mr. Biden is coming in with that. Having said that. And remember, I think anyone who doesn't see Joe Biden as the perfect anti-Donald Trump is wrong in their analysis. So I'm very comfortable with him.
Don't put them in the same ball field because they're just
not even. They might not even be on the same planet.
And that's where it comes again. I don't want to go to this whole thing, but there are a lot of people who are on the left who they just don't trust anybody. So they automatically say that they're the same thing.
I think what's interesting about that, Brian, and that reminds me of something that I kind of wanted to say at one show, so this might be a thing. Look, politicians lie. It's what they do. But you have to look beyond that, and you have to say, why are they lying, and how much are they lying? And it becomes,
none of them are lying all the time, like you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But no, there's
some honest politicians out there, generally honest.
Well, I didn't say what kind of lies.
Right.
White, black,
lies and damn lies, those kind of
whatever. But what I'm saying, I don't think any human being gets through without lying, not that level. But you can't lump them all together. I don't see how you can have a philosophy. Like I said, mine is liberalism. My political philosophy. And so I look for the most liberal and I go with that. Now, do they always do what I want? Absolutely not. And I don't think they could. And I'm not sure they should. I'm not sure I'm always right. That's what bothers me about the extremes on both sides. They are so goddamn sure they're right. And I when you get to that point and you say, this is the only thing we can do,
right?
Then you've lost me. I might even be with you, but when you say, when Trump says the ultimate, only I can, no. So, there's a reason to be somewhat, I don't want to say pessimistic. There's a reason to be concerned over the next 25 days. But if that concern somehow ends with Joe Biden not being president, that's not a valid concern. If you worry about those who really need help, who aren't going to get it, that's a very valid concern. If you worry about a military coup, that's not going to happen. If you worry about a war with Iran, that's not going to happen because that would involve the military at this point.
Only Iran would have to start it, and that would
that's a whole
advantage. They're going to wait for Biden.
And I would agree, but Trev, I happen to be a very strong supporter of AOC, not for the reasons that some other people are. I think she's so valuable, even when she's wrong. Because she is someone who stands up and says,
she stands up. I like it too.
And she does. It's not about her. Now, interesting enough, though, Brian, I happened to meet someone in Washington at a thing we were doing at the Lincoln Memorial, and two young ladies, in fact, and they were from her constituency from Queens, and they really didn't have much nice to say about her.
Well, they thought she lost some jobs with Amazon.
And she was no, these were Hispanic though, but it was just they said she was all for. So I mean, again, but I can only go with the AOC I see, right, which is not I'm very and I think she is basically a trustworthy. There you are, Israel.
I don't think they want to start a war with Iran unless they feel.
Well, I mean, the problem becomes, and let's be honest. I mean, even if Trump provoked the war, which I think you could make a case. I don't know if pardoning 4 people, as bad and heinous as that is worth starting a war. And if they do, you have to fight that war. I mean, you can't. We don't. I mean, I just hope we avoid any type of thing like we did, with 9/11. That we never got to the right people. If you really want to eliminate who was behind 9/11, you would attack Saudi Arabia,
right?
And we're not going to do that.
No.
And
so all the ones that were responsible, we had the relationships with them. It's just and
that unfortunately in that Middle East, I don't have any answers for that.
Well, we can go into this thing about religion. Dave, you and I are basically agreeing about religion, and when you get into this fundamentalism, that's your problem. And
it's here in America. It's with Christianity,
right?
And I find it. I don't want to. I don't mind attacking religion because I think it's a perversion of the spirit. But I do find it interesting that when you get someone who I think, given the constraints of being the Pope, I think the current Pope is a pretty good dude. Given the constraints of being
the Pope.
But
he's just saying fancy things, though.
But what I'm saying, what I find interesting is how do you be a Catholic and side with Trump against your? He's done everything short of just say he's completely wrong. I mean, he really has. If you read it, if you look at his remarks. So people, that again gets back to this cult of personality. That gets into tonight. Mitch McConnell and his brain trust, whomever they are figuring out what's the best way for me to retain, the leadership of the House, but not offend. I don't think Mitch McConnell. Let's make it clear. Mitch McConnell doesn't give a shit about offending Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell gives a shit about some way diminishing his power by attacking Donald Trump. And that's what we don't know. We don't know.
Working behind the scenes with them now. They could be negotiating with each other. Who knows?
Well, but I
that
don't.
Really
I
worries me too when they're kind of quiet the last.
No, you know what? Trump. Look, there's many things that Trump will surprise us for. Trump, anything he tells you he's good at, he never is. He claims he's good at the art of the deal. He will be the worst dealing president in the history. He does. They say, our people. Like, no, we're not Trump now. But I mean, some of the people watching tonight said things like, Trump only cares about Trump. You said it. Other people said it up here. It's only what's good for Trump. And then one of the ones, not just because I see it as a major primary motivation in his life, Trump is very much like his followers in this one respect. He will sacrifice his own best interest to get revenge.
Right. By the way, Ronnie and I had this conversation today in the car, Dave, that Anthony's bringing up. If Trump gets if all of a sudden, like, on day one, the SDNY comes after him and things are looking bad, I don't think she's going to stay with him, to be honest with you. I just don't see her staying with him.
You want to know something? And I mean, again, I'm not above gossip.
Just thinking this.
No, I'm not above gossip. I don't really. When I say this, I mean,
we don't look. I don't care. You don't care.
No, I know that I don't. What I'm going to say is this. I'm going to say there were 3 phases of me to Melania, and I can only speak to myself. The first phase was she's just a high-class hooker in the sense that she gave her body to someone to advance herself. That's what a hooker does. And she came in. Then there was a short period of time when I thought, well, maybe she is that abused woman, just in there. And at the end, no.
She never took a stand.
No, it's not just that. She's in with Donald.
Right.
So again, for her, it will be what's best for her. And I do think she has feelings for Barron. I mean, I not because I think all mothers do. I think you wonder with his size who his father was. I'm not sure it was Donald, but we don't have to go there.
No, he looks like Donald. He looks like.
Yeah, he does. I know. I just want to believe something else. No, but the idea is. But what's interesting is Trump doesn't care what she decides. Trump will do what's best for him. And you're saying, well, I mean, if he has no fortune, right? What does he care? Take half of nothing, right? She knows that. Does she think, I'll stay with him some more till he gets his money? He will make a lot of money if he can stay out of jail long enough. The one today, again, it's just
Everybody
amazing.
owes $1 billion roughly.
I understand that, but look, if banks are too big to fail, there'll be things that he'll be able to manipulate and do, unless that money is Russian mobbed up and they
Right, and it's a lot of, we know it's the Deutsche Bank.
I
We know
agree.
that's where they're, so it's
I agree.
it's
Well,
most likely
but
all Russian money.
Would the Russian mob say, okay, Mr. Trump, we will kill you, or give us these 5 secrets? Then what does he do? I mean, I don't know. I think he would do anything to save his own life. So he would certainly give away state secrets. That wouldn't bother him at all. So we don't know.
Right. Or let's put it this way: any of the secrets that he's passed along to his sons would definitely do it.
Well, it's and who knows? You know what we don't know too, Brian. It'll be interesting. Again,
Melania. I mean, this sounds crazy, but she might do something.
I don't think they've had a conversation that had anything to do.
No, I don't think she. But you know what? I think because what you said, she is. She.
Oh, she will.
I'm sorry, to this country.
I don't think she has anything to trade. Would she trade it? Absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, if she had here's a document saying we do this with this.
Oh no, no. Yeah. Of course. And she might do it out of revenge. I mean, this is just a revengeful family. And Ivanka, there's pretty little Ivanka.
Oh,
I'm going to distance myself. No, she's done. I mean, her brand is kind of tainted. And the interesting thing is, think about this, Brian. I just thought about this recently. Okay. With their vote, people can help Donald Trump, right? Correct? You can be the poorest person in America and help Donald Trump with your vote.
The vote's everything.
Are they going to stay in his hotels? Are they going to buy?
No, of course not. He doesn't want to have anything to do with his constituents.
No. But I'm saying Ivanka now, she deals in high class products. Her dad's followers aren't going to be able to afford them. What's she going to do? Go in a line of Goodwill type clothing?
Right.
It's just kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to see what happens in D.C. I'll be fascinated to watch Trump, the International Bell Tower Hotel, to see, they haven't had a whole lot of occupancy either, but they've made their money is, of course, on hall rentals and things there where they overcharge and that kind of stuff. So what happens? Yeah. But we're going to wait and see. But here's the last thing I want to say tonight, unless you bring something else up. And I just read
this will be it for me.
Yeah. No, I read something today that really, you know things and you know things and you know things, and then it hits you. I mean, I knew it, but this was it. I just read it hurriedly, so I don't know all the details, but I mean, it was there. There are 2 people whose names were on this. They are sponsoring a bus trip on January 20th from Maryland to D.C. to attend the inauguration ceremonies for President Donald Trump. And they showed the ad. They said, this is going to happen and you don't want to let it go too long. So you want to reserve your space on the bus. And I don't know, Brian, how much you know about, but you'd have to be absolutely nuts to live in this area and drive into an inauguration or any big. Right. You're going to take public transportation in it. It's what you're going to do. Okay, all right. Well, first of all, he's not going to be president, but that's one thing. And it was not that unusual for that fare, $100 a person. That's not unusual. You get a bottle of water probably with that, because of course everything goes up in inauguration days. But you're coming into, so there's no chance of you really doing it. But here was the kicker. Purchases are absolutely non-refundable. And the 2 buses are almost sold out.
Wow.
Now at $100, right? A person, 51 seats on a bus,
right.
Give or take. And you know what? That starts with those 2 all the way up to the current president of the United States. Nothing but a scheme, nothing but a scam, nothing but cons. And again, that where they learned that. If they didn't know it, they learned it from the President of the United States. That there are, what was it? Barnum supposedly, allegedly said there's a sucker born every minute. And I guess what discourages me, and this is my end note, is you would think with X number of years of civilization that we would be wiser. And things like Donald Trump, when they come along and people follow him, we're really not that far removed from, if evolution, the first fish that came out to become an ape, to become a, whatever, however evolution played out, or, if they're, the first people coming out of the caves to experience the world. And you said it best tonight. You said the line of the night. Unfortunately, with all the intellect, with all the reason, with all the logic, with all the knowledge, with all the guides, of writers over the years, with all the spiritual leaders, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Jesus Christ, with all these things in front, it still comes down, we're creatures of emotion. And we are. And that's why I wonder sometimes, and again, you and I are, you're not the science fiction fan. I'm more the science fiction fan. I think there is, you don't want to be a creature of pure logic either. Star Trek, one of the brilliances, brilliances of Star Trek, the original Star Trek. But the idea was Spock, total logic, Bones, total emotion, William Shatner, Captain Kirk, kind of balancing it off. And I think that may be, the failing of the people that are supporting Donald Trump. They allow their emotions to get in the way of everything else. And that's just sad. It's just sad.
And thank you, Dave. And I'd like just a brief mentioning of something I watched yesterday. Those of you who aren't from the New York, New Jersey area.
It wasn't on Pornhub, was it?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
But Crazy Eddie used to sell, Crazy Eddie sell those electronics at cheaper prices, and they were cheaper prices. And one of his financial officers he didn't go to prison. He had house arrest, and he turned in his cousins and all. But the deal was with Crazy Eddie was the reason why their prices were lower is he wasn't paying sales taxes. And how he got away with this is through the audits. And when they had an audit, all auditors were male back in those days, even only as far back as the 1980s. And they would have all these attractive women there at the audits to distract them. And of course, the auditors only had a certain number of weeks to get their work done. And they say that you've got to get 75% of the work done within a certain period of time. So their idea was, let's slow them down so much that they've got to get 75% of the work done in 25% of the time, and they won't catch up. And they didn't. They didn't catch up with anything, the auditors, because they were just fooled. So for all those years that Crazy Eddie was doing well, the competitors couldn't understand how's this guy selling the prices so low. And again, it was because in many cases he wasn't paying the sales tax. Now eventually they caught on, and they were offering. And don't forget, Crazy Eddie started as one store, and then it kept building up and became popular, and you had those ads which were popular, and then eventually they caught on, and of course, the CFO, he's corrupt, he's even said it. I went to school, I wanted to be corrupt, basically. But what he did say, and I can't remember the exact terminology they used, but you'll forgive me on this, but from what I remember, he basically was saying that the facts in what was going on with Crazy didn't matter. It was the perception is what really mattered. He didn't say perception, but it's this idea that you can get away with it. I mean, yeah, the auditors were right. They knew, if they had done their job, they would have figured it out. But because they were able to make this facade, and he said the key was, and what was the key? And the key was that the people were stupid who bought from him. The people who invest, especially the stock investors, because
that's right.
They were offering it. They were buying it themselves for $7. Then they thought because everything was exploding there that they wanted to get involved. They were buying for $8 and $9 a share. And then of course Crazy to get the hell out because again he only started up as one store. They knew they were getting that. They knew it was a scam. They knew they couldn't pull off the state tax thing forever. And obviously they got in trouble and this and that. But again, the point is that they were able to pull the con off. And Dave has talked about the con man, and this is an example of where they were able to do that for so long, and a lot of people were willing to be duped. And he talked about P.T. Barnum, but this is exactly what the CFO said. He said, I can see people who shake my hand. They think I'm a great guy before being interviewed by the Huffington Post, but they don't know me in reality. I like ripping people off like that. And I think essentially that's what we have seen here. We've seen Crazy Eddie became our president.
I think that's very, very apt. But I will say one more thing. You always force me to do this because
I'm glad, because that means I'm making
no. I mean, because your comments are very germane. But I again, let's look at the end of that story. If you compare Trump, which people have, to Hitler, Nazi Germany and Hitler didn't come to a great end, right? It resurfaced and all that. We'll deal with that now. If you look at Crazy Eddie, he didn't come to a great end, right? And Donald Trump, it will not come to a good end. The sad thing is, as I say, there's many sad things. America, I believe, will survive Donald Trump, but whatever percentage of those 300,000 people, and you can't lay every death at his doorstep, but you can certainly label a lot of them. For every child who's gone hungry during the Trump years, certainly is something that I have to keep in mind all the time. There's been so much. The moment when I just knew there was no return was when he put the kids in cages. For anybody who suffered, for the kids that still don't have their parents, I mean, all that. But at the end, when the story is written, Trump will have the same type ending. He never was a Hitler. He wanted to be. He wasn't. He wanted to be Mussolini. He wasn't. He wanted to be Putin. He couldn't. And his ending will be more like Crazy Eddie's.
Dave, I ended on that, although I don't know, there's kind of like a thing going on in the chat here.
I see. Moose out there. I like that.
Or not.
No, you know what? No, because again, it doesn't, I'm not a narrow mind. Yeah, there isn't much difference between Biden and Republican. I'll defend the comment, even though I don't believe it's necessarily true in this way. If you want a completely different government, yeah, I'll buy that. All right. I just don't know that America can have a completely different government right now. And so therefore there is a difference to me between Biden and Republican. Now you have to remember, I have no idea. I think it's also an age thing, or it's your concern thing. Like if your major concern is the environment and you're convinced, we only have 3 days to get it right, there's not much time to allow gradual change. I also think it has a lot to do with youth and age. I mean, I certainly at 18, first time I took to the streets of DC, to become the radical that I've become or not become or whatever over the years, I certainly, wasn't as compromising necessarily as I am now. And I don't think that's such a bad word. A lot of people do. I think the trick is, and this is the hardest part, man, is to compromise without losing your core values. And that's the trick. So compromise, I've never thought compromise was, in fact, it's the only way government will work that we have.
Right.
So yeah, do I understand? And I understand that. My question is, and this gets you, and I've had this discussion, we're on the same side of this, there's the ideal and there's the practical. And the world is much more practical than it is ideal. And you always keep the ideal in mind. You always keep it as your goal. You always keep it as your target. It's your march forward for it. But you have to realize that it's probably not going to be attainable for you, or at least in your lifetime. And that's the other thing. As human beings, you get to be my age. I'm 69 next year. Yeah, I assume I have more years behind me than I do in front of me. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. So maybe, you have a whole different
You'd agree, Dave. I want to just clarify this.
Yeah.
As much as you said that you know where Moose Gal's Corner was coming from. But the idea, I mean, if you made that comment 6 years ago, there might be something to it, yes. But right now, there's a big difference between a Trumper.
Well,
And
and again,
I mean,
I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying.
no, I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying
It takes a leap of faith in this sense. Okay, there might not be much difference. Okay, there might not be much difference between Joe Biden and a Republican. But I guarantee you this: there's a hell of a lot of difference between Joe Biden and Trump Republicans,
right.
and there's
That's
a
what
hell
I'm
of a
talking
lot
about.
of difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And anybody who doesn't see that is wrong.
Or they're actually Trumpers in disguise because
Well,
they
you
I mean,
go with that. I dismiss that. I think they just feel they look at it and they look
or
at
their parents again. Their parents were Republicans, and they have this hatred for Democrats.
I'm not
They
so
don't
sure.
they don't want to admit that they kind of like they hated the Democrats when they were Republicans, but now they're kind of not. You know, I'm not saying anybody here, but
No, well, see, and I down here, I know not a lot.
I've
but
just
I
seen
know,
too much of that shit. You know
no,
what I
no,
mean?
I understand that.
You know?
But I see it down here, and in my life, working.
It's like the
with,
guy, you know, when you're in the bus, Dave, when you're like 12 years old, and somebody says, some guy, your friend says, I don't like her at all. But you know damn well he liked the girl.
Well, no, but I think Brian, again, you were talking earlier tonight about how environment plays in and how your experiences play in. And my experiences have been with radicals that they really are true believers. I'm not talking
Some,
radicals
right?
on the left.
Some.
And what I mean by that is they can't compromise. That's why we need to hear from them, right? We really do, to make sure they question us. I mean, I don't want to, I'm on the left.
Right.
I'm on probably what most people would consider the extreme left. I once was on the radical left, but as I got older, going down and having a chance to talk daily with the Occupy people when they were here, knowing a person who's one of the leaders, if there were an organization, but is one of the leaders, it isn't, but is heavily involved in Antifa here, and listening to them. And he said something to me. He's young. And he said something, he said, and I was always telling him, I said, it'll get older. He's just started to get into his mid 30s. He says, I see what you mean. I said, well, don't lose the idealism. Just understand that, that's your goal now. I mean, that's not something that's necessarily attainable. So with that having been said, I'm going to go.
Okay.
And
Dave, it's great having you on again. And
it was fun.
Yeah,
and hopefully enjoyable, hopefully entertaining. And maybe, just maybe, we're both teachers. You're still doing it. Maybe somebody got something out of it. I don't mean that like I'm looking semi, but we've said all along, Brian, and I think it bears repeating, that really what we are is just we would be doing this, not probably this long, but you and I have been doing this for how many years?
Right, we're talking
just
anyway.
in terms of looking at big pictures and trying to figure out, what's going on, and that's really all.
I'm sorry we couldn't get Shelly. Shelly, I sent her a message about an hour before the show. Asked if she wanted to come on, and she said cool. And I said I call at 7, but whatever reason, I'm sure it was important. She normally would not have a problem.
No,
but this, I'm sure there had been some difficulty that she couldn't make it. So that's that. But we're good. We can go on either way, and we're fine. But maybe we'll have Shelly on next time, and we should have Ryan Velez back next week.
Brian's awfully busy now. Chess is the hot item now with the Queen's Gambit, and he needs to capitalize on that.
Well, we need him back.
I mean, he really is, Brian. I mean, we laugh about he's our friend, but he really is a pretty big deal in the chess world. I mean, when it comes to that.
So thank you, everybody.
The Joey Fulcher dance class.
Yeah,
well, you up.
Let me tell you, everybody, the quick story about dance class. Joey, I'm not going to let you get it. Joey, when he was a student, he was a son of a gun. I was one of my first days. Well, it was my first day seeing him. I'm in a classroom, and I was substituting at the time. And these girls, little girls, I mean, these are 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. They come in, and they want to know if anybody was going to sign up for dance class. And in those days, it was just the girls would sign up for dance class, and the guys would play. So Joey's like looking at me, smiling, right? And I knew something's up. What's going on with this kid? And all of a sudden, he gets up. And he starts going up to these girls to sign up for, and they're looking at him like this. The whole class started saying, "Oh my God, Joey Fulcher's going to sign up for dance." And they started screaming and yelling. It got out of hand. The principal had to come in the room. He goes, "I want this class to do some work now." And I'm looking at Joey, and I knew he was causing problems. Then the principal leaves, And then Joey's laughing, and they started up again. The principal came back in again. It's a long story short. The next day I was there. I was in an office. And this joker, Joey Fulcher, leaves his classroom to come see me. In an office, I had a 15-minute break. I was so tired. And he comes up and knocks at the door and starts laughing at me. He says, "Who signed up for dance class?" Bugged me like crazy. And he hasn't stopped ever since, and that's probably 35 years ago or whatever. Joey would know better than I would. So, Joe, you owe me. You owe me. Bother him or this guy, not me. All right.
I like Joey, so I don't know.
But no, Joey's a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of Dave's, and yeah. So I mean, thanks for all the. I guess we're gonna end up. I'll post some of the comments on the outro. Some really cool stuff here. Thanks, Trev, Anthony, everybody here. We got people coming in. Got us forwards. You got a lot of different people that came in today, so it's great. And share it if you can, and please subscribe, because that way, we're pretty steady. 8 o'clock. We're gonna have those 2 shows during the week pretty soon. But please subscribe, because that way, if you hit the notification button, you'll know that we're coming up, and we're not asking for anything. We're not monetized. We're not anything. We're living our life the way we expect to. So you're not finding any kind of ads here unless YouTube decides to do that. But we're not making a penny off of this, and nor do we want to. We just do. Okay. So it's good to see everybody there. So Dave, again, I appreciate you being here as usual. And Joey, behave yourself. That's the last thing I want to say. All right. This last.
D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille. Elle est jolie, parfois.